This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
What's going on, gang? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Maybe not the vibes we had on Monday after the crazy win in Game 1, but it's back at it for us and for the Winnipeg Jets after dropping a 5-2 decision in Game 2 yesterday at Canada Life Centre in front of another whiteout crowd, which was almost exclusively white, with the exception of one guy in a salmon shirt. We'll talk about that at some point, I'm sure. But hey, tough loss for the Jets and a game that really unraveled in the final 5 minutes of the second period. And the Avalanche strike back, make it a best-of-5 series, and regain home ice advantage as the team hits the road with 2 days off to get ready for Friday night's game number 3. Game 4 goes on Sunday afternoon in Denver as well. We'll break down the game, hear from Rick Bowness, Mark Scheifele, Kyle Connor, and talk about it with Wiebe, who's going to join us a little bit later on after Jets media availability, which is underway pretty much as we speak. We'll see what we get from the club a little bit later on. It was a tough night all around for our hockey teams because the Moose took one on the chin down in Texas, dropping the first game of their best-of-3 series against the Texas Stars, 6-3. Dan Fink is going to join us from Austin, actually before Ken today, just the way timing works out. So we'll have Fink on from Texas, talk about last night's game with the Moose with their backs against the wall, needing to win tomorrow night to force a third and deciding game on Friday down in Austin. Lots of other activities around the National Hockey League as well. And in the last half hour of the program, we're going to head out to Edmonton. Our buddy Tom Gazzola is going to jump on with us. We'll tee up Oilers Kings and get Tommy's thoughts on some of the other series in and around the playoffs. Listen, just before we bring in Michael Remis, welcome to everyone watching on YouTube. Thanks for being with us. Shout out to all the podcast listeners. And a huge thanks to all of our sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day. Our newest sponsor, the great folks over at Rolly's Transfer. Of course, Princess Auto, the Winnipeg Jets, Little Brown Jug, Wallace & Wallace, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, F Apparel, Canadian Club, Modern Man Barbershop, Manitoba Battery, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. Opening day yesterday at the course. Saw Christine as the pro at the game. They're all fired up. And, of course, a why not question of the day as well for our friends at Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Remo, the viral Michael Remis joins us now on the program. Harvesting likes in a dark evening for the Winnipeg Jets, despite the very bright attire of just about everyone in the building.
Yeah, everyone wearing white. I showed it to Ezra Ginsburg, a legal curve. He tweeted out a picture of the guy in the pink shirt among a sea of white. A lot of people calling back to that Simpsons episode where Homer wore the pink shirt. And yeah, if the Jets are losing, got to make content in other ways. Us, if they're not giving us goals, you got to go. I mean, this playoffs time, there's just so much stuff happening. And I just heard the crowd in section 329, I'm told also 302, were chanting salmon shirt, salmon shirt. And I thought it was pretty funny. And I just tweeted out, hey, they're chanting salmon shirt, and retweeted Ezzy. And now Jay Honorate's tweeting out my pictures on Bar Down. All these aggregator accounts have my picture. So like this tweet I sent got like 100 and maybe my best tweet ever, 133,000 views. So I guess if you're not winning the game, you can talk about the crowd and get some likes that way. So, hey, great to be here.
Yeah, you know what? It was. I mean, the crowd obviously is such a big part of these whiteout games, and we knew that it would be a challenge for the energy level of the crowd to match Sundays just because of the late start. Well, listen, the start of the game was phenomenal. The intro, the excitement right out of the gate, and man, when David Gustafsson scored in the first period, I mean, you get that fourth line goal. I mean, you had to feel pretty darn good about the way things were going. I mean, we'll kind of break down everything that happened with the Winnipeg Jets, but I will say the downer of the end of the second period and the uphill battle that the Jets had in the third, that they weren't really able to do too much as far as getting those, grade A scoring chances. They did have a couple. I mean, they certainly didn't pack it in. But you could tell, Reem, that that was the biggest deciding factor, along with the time of the game, in really keeping that energy level up in the building. Because of the fact that it was well after 11 o'clock by that point, and you knew the Jets were really, really up against it.
Yeah, the building exploded. Well, first of all, David Gustafsson getting on the board early. Miles Wood ties it up on a very quick face-off win. And you have that 4-minute double minor to Kyle Connor for the high stick, and the roof came off the building, 102 point something decibels. I mean, that was way louder than the Gustafsson. You had that big penalty kill, and Church of the Jets penalty kill went going for 3 for 3 yesterday against the Colorado offense. But yeah, a bit of a downer after, I think, Lehkonen tied it up, and then the Parise goal. And you and Murat talked. I blame you guys for jinxing him. In your preview, you talked about how improved Hellbuck has been at handling the puck, but he went out, and I mean, shout out to Trennan. Is a big forecheck, stole the puck and got it over to Pagliano, got over to Parise. Had like 3 whacks at it. You thought they stopped the first one, but eventually the net is that open, it's gonna go in, and Parise is a veteran player and put it in there. And yeah, it really took the sails out. There were a couple chances, not enough of them. The Avalanche were doing a great job getting in the shooting lanes, blocking a ton of shots. So credit.
No way. I don't think so. Anyway, now we're getting it in there. Listen, the thing with Georgiev
was I muted the whole time?
I don't know. Just move on.
Okay.
Make sure you're not. Georgiev looked. I mean, man, he looked nervous and shaky at the beginning of the game as well. And then the Jets got up. I mean, it really did seem like there was an opportunity to jump on that game and take it. And credit to Colorado. I mean, they did not give up a ton. And we can talk about what lines are going for the Winnipeg Jets and which ones aren't. I mean, I would make the argument that offensively, all of the Winnipeg Jets lines need to step it up and have some more to give. But I will say this, that the Jets had a chance to, I mean, if they could have gotten that second goal, you wonder how, Jared Bednar reacts, and you wonder how Georgiev reacts. And listen, I don't think that he was playing at a particularly high level, but, he was a little fortunate last night. There was a few chances, the things that sort of more hit him as far as making saves. I think the Jets, over the winning streak, had done a great job of, making the most of their chances. They didn't as much last night. And the longer the game went on, especially once the Avalanche started scoring in the second period, I think that really gave Georgiev a real significant boost when it comes to, just that confidence level that's so important. And as we heard from Bednar after the game, They knew that he was their most important player last night, and they gave him that vote of confidence after getting a huge win and tying the series at 1.
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't going to be as bad as he was in game 1, and he certainly rebounded. So shout out to him, and goaltending as well for the Jets. Connor Hellebuyck now has given up 10 goals in 2 games. Not exactly Hellebuyck-like numbers. So I think I was expecting a rebound, and I think we saw that from Hellebuyck to start. He was stopping everything. He was making it look calm. He was excellent, but it was just that stretch there in the second period. They really fell off, and Colorado took the lead, and the Jets weren't able to get it back. So, how are they going to regroup? How are they going to move forward? Colorado, I mean, they did a nice job. Nathan MacKinnon has only 1 assist. You look at the goal scorers. Who is it? Zach Parise, Ross Colton. They went for 3
Josh
for 3.
Manson.
Yeah, Josh Manson
breakaway on the penalty box.
And the more you look at those goals, I don't know, it's just I don't want to say bad luck because that's bad, but the face-off win, I mean, it's a quick one. Josh Manson, the Ehlers takes into the boards, he falls. Just at the same time, Manson gets out of the box and is on a breakaway. Josh Manson, the defensive defenseman, on a breakaway. How many breakaways has this guy had in his career?
Well, think about it. Yeah. And it had to happen in the second period, because if it was in the first or third, Gabriel Velarde's on the right side because again, he wasn't coming out alone. He was coming out with Velarde. Yeah. Because it was coincidental minors. So, I mean, listen, there were some things that and this is going to happen in a 7-game series. I mean, we're going to get to goaltending. I mean, certainly that wasn't the A game from Connor Hellebuyck. The Jets need that from their MVP. And going to Denver on the weekend, I think we have to see the best of Hellebuyck, and he needs to be the best player for the Winnipeg Jets. I think if they're going to come back with the split or dare to dream up 3-1, first of all, get a win, and he's going to need to be front and center. But yeah, you mentioned Remis. I mean, that game completely turned in the last, really 3 minutes, but I think you could feel it happening over the course of the second half of the second period. But even in the first period, we remember, what was it, 11-1, 6 minutes in shots in game number 1? That was not the case at all. The Jets had a phenomenal start to the game, I thought. And then the pushback came from the Colorado Avalanche, and they had only had 2 shots on goal well into the second half of the first period. They had 15 by the end of the first. And listen, Hellebuyck seemed to really be on his game. That sort of fell apart a little bit with the Miles Wood goal. And then all the other craziness of that second period that ended up with 4 going in for the visitors. But just back to, Kyle Connor takes the 4-minute minor, and you realize, especially with the fact that there was it was 2 for 2 on the power play in game number 1. I mean, they're just so deadly when they put their top guys out there. I had a conversation earlier, and we can maybe discuss this, and maybe a why not question of the day. When the Avs throw out McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Makar, and Taves, is that the best 5-man unit in the NHL? We can discuss that at some point. It certainly is right up there, if it's not the best. And for them to kill that penalty or the double minor the way they did was a huge boost. And dude, that goal by Mark Scheifele to put the team up 2-1, I have to admit, it really sort of felt like, okay, this is the Jets' night. I mean, they've done what they needed to do. They had a nice start. They killed those penalties, and then to get that goal. And unfortunately, it didn't take very long for that to turn around. I mean, the Lettinen goal with less than 6 minutes to tie it up was one thing, but I mean, the mess behind the net with Hellebuyck handling the puck that turned in the Parise goal really was a killer. And then, I mean, we can break down the Josh Manson goal, and I'm sure we'll talk about it with Ken. But to go from 3-2 to 4-2 going into the period on a totally avoidable play in the last 10 seconds of the period, that really was a killer.
Yeah, I think even both of them, avoidable. So, I mean, the Parise one comes out of the net, misplay, and the Manson one. I mean, self-inflicted stuff. I mean, Ehlers had the puck. You're running out of time. You know, if he makes an effort to get it deep, he's kind of trying to stick handle around while on his ass. And Lehkonen takes it. McKinnon gets it, makes an amazing pass to Manson coming out of the box. So a couple tough breaks. You know, I think the Jets could have generated more. 0 for 3 on the power play. I thought they had some good movement. Not enough chances. Monahan, I thought, had a great chance in the third when they were finally, given that third period power play. Some serious game management, I think, going on by the refs in these playoffs. But what's the other one? Oh, yeah. Ehlers was, wide open at the side of the net in the third period, too, with a chance.
That play, that was a great pass by Nino.
Yeah.
To find him. And if you watch the replay of that, I mean, it didn't catch much of Gorgiev's shoulder. Mm-hmm. Very close to being a goal. But again, that was just sort of the night that it was for the Jets. But I'm sure you'd agree. I mean, there was a lot of times where it seemed like the Jets were being pushed to the outside. When the Jets are struggling offensively and top teams are handling them, I think back to Vegas at the start of the year, Dallas at times, they become a little bit more of a perimeter team. And they just weren't able to consistently get to the middle of the ice last night. And that is absolutely going to be a focus of Rick Bowness and the coaching staff going into Denver for game number 3 on Friday. Because, I mean, you can get the odd deflection. And I think the Avs have been doing a great job at just blocking some of the shooting lanes, even for the defensemen. Josh Morrissey made a few great plays, but it really took a few great plays and very nifty footwork and agility to even open up the opportunity to get those pucks through. And then, I mean, Velarde had a nice deflection. Boom, it hit a defenseman. They just did not make those, and they weren't able to get enough of them and make things a little more difficult for a goaltender that was really struggling heading into last night.
Yeah, I'm just bringing up the shot map here from Money Puck, and you see the Avalanche. They're getting a lot way in tight, Huss. And there were a couple of giveaways, too. Their Jets getting pressured, not able to break it out of their end cleanly, and it ends up like 2 guys, and Connor Hellebuyck's got to save the day. And I thought he was, going to have a huge bounce-back game. Game 1, but he let in 6 goals, and he looked really dialed in the first period, saving just about anything on some big chances, and just couldn't hold it for the full 60. And here you look at the Jets heat map as well. A lot of shots from the outside. Not as many. There's a couple from in tight, not as many. So that's something I think they're focused on, getting shots on net and trying to get closer to the middle, like you said. So I think there's takeaways. There's some positives you can take away from that game. They can certainly play with the Avalanche, and I thought it was going to be a 7-game series coming in, and maybe we're headed that way, but we're headed back to Denver here for a late Friday night. Teltas 9 p.m. Central Time. 9 p.m.
9 p.m. on a Friday night.
I'm
down with it. I'm fully here for it. But I mean, those games, they an 8:45 puck drop is challenging for a lot of people, and obviously not ideal. But we spent some time talking about that yesterday. Let's hear from the coach, Rick Bowness. He spoke after last night's 5-2 loss, empty netter, and 4 goals in the second period. Here's what Bones had to say about the Avs tying up the series.
We were better. Yeah, we were a lot better in certain areas. We had some lapses. Certainly at the end of the second there, that kind of caught up to us a little bit. But we had the start we really wanted. Then they got their power play and they kind of finished up strong in the first. But for the most part, it was a lot better in areas, and there's still improvement to be made in other areas.
Yeah, and Bones, of course, speaking to just the defensive structure, which was pretty much absent in Game 1 despite the win. And that's what hurts about that game yesterday. I mean, with the exception of that very unfortunate goal by Manson at the end after Ehlers was tripped or fell, depending on who you want to talk to, they held McKinnon not in check. He was dangerous every time he touched the puck, but didn't score. And the big guys were, sort of held in, as I said, held in check for a good portion of the game. And that sort of makes that one that much tougher. He did, of course, get on the scoreboard with a crucial assist, though, on the Josh Manson goal at the end of the second period. Bones talked about the unfortunate timing of that mishap.
It's not that you forget about him, but it's just we turned the puck over. We lost the battle on the boards, and it's just the timing of it. He's on that side of the ice, so Gabe can't get on the box and catch him. He's gone. It was just it's unfortunate timing, and they took advantage of it.
They certainly did, and that absolutely had to be, in a lot of ways, a bit of well, I wouldn't even say the TSN turning point. I mean, the Lehkonen goal to get them back on even terms, Reem, started off, and this is what Bones was referring to. When the team has struggled, he keeps going back to puck management, and I thought that entire goal started with the Jets and Dylan DeMello having the puck on his stick in their own end, and they weren't able to get it out. And one thing led to another, and the next thing you knew, Lehtonen was tipping that puck past Hellebuck, and it was all there. The Jets certainly can be better, and they're going to need to be better against an opponent like the Avalanche if they want to get this series back to Winnipeg tied or better.
Yeah, man, those guys, they've done a great job. Just those draw passes with McKinnon. I know he didn't get an assist there, but McKinnon, Makar, and then tipped in by Lehkonen. Just such a nice play. And Lehkonen, he's a playoff performer. They got him at the deadline a couple years ago from Montreal. He was big in Montreal's run to the Cup final. He was big for them in their, when they won the Cup. So we saw it in Game 1. He goes to the net. He gets, stick on the puck, and it goes in. So, the way that Makar shoots it from the D, I mean, he finds lanes. He scored through one in Game 1. Got a very hard wrist shot. So that's something to watch for here going forward. But I don't know if that was the turning point. Maybe it was the third goal, but certainly took a bit of the air. I mean, it was hot after that Schaefer goal. You thought you were going to see the Jets grab all the momentum and take it into Game 3. Not quite. The games are 60 minutes long, but. It's funny. I was listening to CJOB postgame on the way home, and Christian O'Mel's like, "Yeah, that would have been a legendary Jets playoff goal. The one-handed tip in the net. The place is going crazy. Now it's just like another goal, in a losing game that I don't think we're going to be talking about for forever or anything. But it was a great moment there for if you want to experience what it's like in the whiteout.
Yeah, that was absolutely electric. It seemed like McKinnon, someone said he was out there for half the game. Not quite, almost 23 minutes on the ice. But it did seem like he was out there all night. And here, I'm going to put this out right now for the Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. Is the Avalanche five-man unit, when they throw out McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Cale Makar, and Devon Taves, is that the best five-man unit in the National Hockey League? If the league was like a video game and it was no line changes and you could throw those guys out for the entire game, can you match that? I mean, I was talking with Matt Iwanek in Edmonton earlier today on the Lock Shop, and obviously the Oilers can throw the forwards out there, but Cale Makar, who played over 27 minutes himself last night, is such a difference maker. I'm not sure. Let us know in the chat if you had a better five-man unit than that. Speaking of McKinnon and Rantanen, that was one of the downers of last night's game, that they did such a good job for the most part in containing those guys and keeping them on the off the score sheet. Here's Bones on containing Mac and Rantanen, especially considering how many times they're going over the boards.
Listen, for the most part, we did a good job on those guys. Look who scored their goals, right? Parise. I mean, those guys got in there and got some greasy goals. So for the like Adams Lions doing a great job against those guys for the most part. They're elite players. They're gonna control the puck. They're gonna make their plays. But I thought we minimized them for the most part tonight, much better than we did last game.
Rick, what'd you see from your penalty kill during the double minor?
Yeah, they did a fantastic job. They clogged up the seams and kept them to the outside and blocked some shots, which is huge. They did a fantastic job. They gave us a good chance there.
And that is, and certainly we'll get to this with Ken when he joins us. When you do the autopsy of last night's game, the Lowry line, I thought, as Rick just mentioned, continues to rise to the occasion, play their asses off against one of the toughest challenges in the entire National Hockey League. You've got a fourth line that, while they didn't play a ton, contributed with a goal that was massive for so many reasons. I mean, to get to the goalie, to get that good feeling right off the bat, that you just need your top couple lines to, frankly, generate more and make things more difficult for a goaltender that have been struggling. Here's Bones on what his club can do to make it more challenging for the Colorado netminder.
Yeah, we need to spend more time in there, and we don't get our D involved enough. Like they're throwing a lot of pucks from there. They just throwing them at the net all over, and we're not getting enough of that. So we can spend more time in their zone, but one way we're going to do that is to win some battles low and get our defense a lot more involved. And we're still passing up chances to shoot the puck. We are, and we're going to have to fix that. We can tell them all we want, shoot the puck. They got to make that the commitment to get more pucks on the net.
Rick, how much does accessing that part of your game start in your own zone and exiting clean and getting more support coming up the ice?
Yeah, it was better tonight. We can still get better at it. Yeah.
All right, so there's what Bones had to say after the game. A little more brief of a post-game presser for Bones after the loss last night. Mark Scheifele, as we mentioned, brought the fans out of their seats with a absolutely beautiful goal to put the team up 2-1. The second half of the second period was when the roof kind of caved in on the Winnipeg Jets. Here's Scheifele on where things changed last night.
Obviously they got two lucky bounces and ends up in our net. So, it was a tough fought game. They probably had a little too much zone time. Kind of gave them a little bit too much space. At times in that game, but also had good shifts in there too. So, we got 2 days of rest here. So, just ramp it up. It's a playoffs. You're not going to win every game, and you just gotta, be prepared for all the punches that are thrown.
A little bit more from Scheif. He talked about his goal, going one-handed, the pass from Gabe Vilardi, as well as got into what Bones had just mentioned, if they had tested Georgiev enough.
Fantastic pass by Gabe. I knew the guy was kind of there, so he didn't really know where the puck was, so I kind of knew that it was, if I go two-handed there, he probably reacts in the same fashion. So just made a judgment call.
Test Georgiev sufficiently the way you would have liked, Mark, overall?
Probably not. But he did make some big saves. Casey hits a crossbar. In that third period, he gets some looks. He hits the post in the second period. Then they go down and score shortly after. So that's playoffs. We just got to continue to make adjustments and trying to find ways to probably get to the front of the net a little more. But probably get a few more chances, a few more sustained ozone time.
All right. Now the Jets assistant captain also talked bigger picture on just the challenge of Colorado and the matchups against the Avalanche.
They're a fantastic team. They've been that all year. They got some world-class players that move really well and make you pay when you give them time and space. And I think we gave those guys a little bit too much time and space tonight. So, I think we just have to make our adjustments. They're going to do the same as well, and that's what makes the playoffs fun.
Before the playoffs started, you talked about riding the roller coaster, the highs and lows of it. This is the first big low that you face, or I don't know, big low. But are you seeing any differences in how this team is, coming out of that low?
Well, it's also 20 minutes after we lost, so we have 2 days before our next one, and we know it's going to be a good crowd in Colorado. So we just have to continue to work at our game, continue to find what makes us us, and they're a fantastic team over there. So got to give them a lot of credit. They did a lot of good things. They blocked a lot of shots. They made it tough to to get anything going. And that's the fun part about playoffs. We weren't expecting this to be an easy series. They're a great team over there, and we just gotta continue to roll with the punches, like I said before.
And listen, it's probably really tough to put everything into words after, as Mark just mentioned, 20 minutes after such a tough loss when the stakes are so high. But he did mention there, Remo, that there are the 2 days off before Game 3 on Friday. And I think considering the way the game went last night, I think that actually is a big, big benefit for the Winnipeg Jets to be able to sort of wash this game, get an extra day of practice, preparation, and just a little bit more time between, the disappointment of Game 2 before going in onto the road, playing against a team that was the NHL's best at home all season long, knowing what the stakes are.
Yeah, the Jets went 4-0 against Colorado up until last night. I mean, the Avalanche are a good team. You're not going to go undefeated against them, and I agree. I think they got to find a way to get back to the game that led them to how many games in a row with 3 or less, and now the Avalanche have 10 goals on a goalie in 2 games, very uncharacteristic of the Jets. And if you watch them all season, they'll be able to bounce back. And I'm seeing some stuff in chat about changing the goalie. Like, I don't think there's probably it's laughable, 0 chance. So
that's a wake up. Ken's not even here yet for the wake ups. Everyone, people, come on.
Yeah. So look, they'll bounce back, but I do think they need to figure out how to keep the puck out of their own net. You're not going to win giving up average of 5 goals a game, but they've done it all year, and I think you can go from the 82 game sample size more from that than what we've seen here in 2 games against Colorado.
Well, and to your point, I mean, the Jets have done a great job for the most part this year, and moving on from tough losses and being better, and that's exactly what they're going to have to do. Here's just one more quickie from Scheif, just on the star players of the Avalanche, like Nate McKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, being on the ice all night and getting so much time in the battle.
Yeah, it's tough. You hear the stories about those guys, how much they take care of their body. The amount they can play is obviously very, very impressive. And they're Nate's one of the best players in the league for a reason, and so is Kale, so is Rantanen, and you can't just rely on one guy or one line. You got to rely on everyone, and like I said before, I think we gave them a little bit too much time and space to do what they wanted with the puck, and I think that's about it.
All right, there's Scheif. We will hear from Kyle Connor a little bit later on the program. Ken coming up in about 15 minutes or so. Ken Wiebe, of course, just finishing up Jets media availability. And we're going to go down to Texas in just a second and hook up with the voice of the Manitoba Moose, who had a tough loss as well last night in the playoffs with Daniel Fink. But I do want to thank our newest sponsor, Rolly's Transfer, for jumping on board with Winnipeg Sports Talk. Rolly's is family-owned and operated for 60 years and the most trusted name in the moving business in Manitoba. We know how stressful that moving can be. Dealing with Rollies, you'll know that you'll be getting the best routes, the best prices, and experts in the industry that have been doing it and taking care of Manitobans' precious valuables and more for over 60 years. They've got a brand new website right now, making it even easier to set up a moving job. What you need to do is just get to Rollys.com, that's Rollys, and get to the top right and click on Request a Quote. They'll turn it around quickly for you. And, with their experience in the logistics business in Winnipeg, they've got an incredible network throughout southern Manitoba, so they can get you the best rates on those moves with flexible times to do it as well. Rolly's Transfer, Manitoba's most trusted name in moving services for over 60 years. Find out more and request your quote today at Rollys.com. Going to be beautiful for the next couple days as we can kind of move on from game number 2. Speaking of moving into spring, I know many of you have some big-time projects you're looking at this summer, and our friends at Consolidated Supply can help you with so much of that. They are the leaders in irrigation systems, artificial turf, and golf carts. As the exclusive club car dealer in Manitoba, and also have other great options for your property, including hot tubs and amazing outdoor kitchens. And of course, they're also the leaders in small engine parts and repair. Pop by and see Consolidated Supply at their showroom, open to the public, 1395 Niagara Road East, or find out more online at cte.ca. As you prepare for spring, do you have your batteries yet? Manitoba Batteries, powering Winnipeggers and Manitobans with batteries of all makes, models, shapes, sizes for whatever you need powered. And right now, at both the Logan location and their new location on Dovercourt, the Manitoba Battery Spring Sale is underway. You're always getting the best price, bar none, at Manitoba Battery, beating the pants off the big box stores, but some great special deals right now with the turn of the season. Find out more right now, manitobabattery.com, or pop down and see them in either of the two Winnipeg locations. And a big shout out to our friends over at Modern Man Barbershop. Guys, you want to get a fresh look for spring? Get them down to one of 8 Modern Man Barbershop locations for great haircuts, shaves, beard shaping, color services, and more. Great hair care products as well. Best way to set yourself up is to book your look and make an appointment online at modernmanbarbershop.com. All right, let's welcome in Dan Fink to this program. Fink, what's going on down in Texas? How are you?
Pretty good. Just getting ready for game 2 and kind of unpacking the loss last night for the Moose, and just getting through this day here and enjoying some of the nice weather and enjoying some playoff hockey.
You know, usually I'm sure you guys stay in hotels. Did you get a monthly? It seems like you guys have been there forever, and we just got going with the series last night.
Yeah, tough sequence for the logistics crew here for the Moose, but Scotty Nicholson and Brad Andrews combining to get us a couple of different hotels while we're down here. We'll shifted spots over the weekend once we did find out that we would be staying down here, and they found us a great spot, as you can kind of see in behind me. And you know what those guys do is very underappreciated. I think sometimes they had no idea if we were going to be staying in Texas or if we were going to be heading back home until about Wednesday night, and still putting together whether it's hotels, buses, flights, things like that. Some good stuff from Scotty and the crew to make sure that we're well taken care of down here and have a good place to stay as the Moose take on the Texas Stars.
Beautiful backdrop, by the way. You always bring it. For the podcast listeners missing out today, paint the picture for us. Where are you? It looks like almost looks tropical there, if you will.
Yeah, we're in an area called the Arboretum here in Austin, and it is unbelievable. It's just trees
what
everywhere.
A great city,
whether it's real nice. You can kind of probably see the pool down in behind me there, and it's not getting as much use today. A little cloudy here this afternoon, but still about 26 degrees Celsius. Really muggy. The skin is just drinking in the humidity right now after a dry Winnipeg winter. So that's been nice. But certainly the focus for the Moose, not so much on the weather today as they get ready for a deciding game tomorrow, as they're going to have to win their next 2 games on Thursday and Friday.
Now, as we mentioned, the team was there for the final 2 games of the regular season, stuck around, prepared, and then dropped the puck last night. And for 2, it's just a unique situation, Dan, is that these teams are so familiar with each other from the regular season, the end of the regular season, and and obviously last night's game 1. A little bit of a different feel, I'd imagine, for a playoff series, considering it kind of feels like you're already in game 3 of one.
Yeah, I mean, it almost artificially pushes it on to feeling like a game 5 or a 5-game series, which would be normal for the next round. But for this first round, it's a best of 3 set. So for the Moose, you were talking earlier, Huss, and Remo talking about the Jets beating the Avalanche 4 times in a row. And it's hard to beat a team 5 times in a row and so on and so forth. Well, that's kind of what happened to the Manitoba Moose, is they had beaten the Stars 4 times in a row. They'd won every single game at HEB Center this season. And then the Stars came out like a team that had been stewing for 2 days over losing those last couple of games by a combined score of 12-4. The Moose were rolling. Stars get back a key centerman, which really, I think, had a big impact on the game and how that lineup played out. And it was certainly a flip of the script from what we saw over the weekend. The Moose, who had been such a physical team in those 2 games and really rolling over the Stars, all of a sudden seemed a little bit timid and a little bit thrown off, as the Stars did a really good job of just seeming to make them uncomfortable throughout that game. It led to some costly turnovers, and the Moose just not able to establish themselves consistently in the offensive zone.
Dan, take us through the game. Like, I got to the Jet game early, and it was actually great. You could hang out in the concourse and watch the game. It was 2-1, then it was quickly 4-1, 4-2. Obviously finished up at 6-3, but take us through sort of the ups and downs for Manitoba, and then we'll sort of get into where they go from here.
Yeah, I mean, for the Moose, I would say that they were a bit of a step behind the Stars throughout that game. Kind of talk about Texas being obviously both teams motivated. It's a playoff game, but Texas had seen themselves on the wrong side of a few games here consistently from the Moose. They get back some key players, and they were ready to go from the drop of the puck, and the Moose get into a little bit of trouble in the first period in that they take a couple undisciplined penalties. And we talked a lot in the pregame show about how that was going to be one of the keys for the Moose is staying disciplined. And if they're able to keep their heads on straight, they're going to be fine because they keep that Texas crowd from getting into it. And they're one of the most hostile environments that you're going to play in the American Hockey League. You don't let that top-ranked Texas power play onto the ice. Well, if the Moose take some bad penalties, the Texas power play doesn't score, but it got the momentum rolling for Texas. They end up outshooting the Moose 15-5 in the first period. Daniel Torgerson, though, against the flow of play, ends up scoring a goal after Dolphins' own Mark Lewinsky created some havoc with a good chance, and then kind of went up with his head instead of his hand or anything like that, ran into Ben Berard, also leaping for the puck. It dropped right down onto Torgerson's stick, and all he had to do was tap it in. The Moose had the lead, but 37 seconds later, leading scorer in the AHL, Maverick Bourque, comes right back the other way and buries one up under the bar past Thomas Milic. And so it's 1-1 after one. Texas scores early on a goal that a little bit controversial, looked like a high stick from Curtis McKenzie. It was real close to knock a puck down and then put it in the net. But the goal stood, and then the Moose get running around in their own zone. And when that Texas team can hem you in, they're just going to keep zipping that puck around, and eventually they're able to work it to a couple of defensemen sneaking in off the line, and 2 minutes apart, it's 4-1 before the Moose power play gets out there, and it's been red hot lately. Gets a big goal to get them within one heading into the third, and you thought that maybe that goal could just be the launching point for the Moose to get tied. Well, they get a goal 6 minutes in from Parker Ford, just a simple play to the net. Moose were kind of having a good start, and then things start to slow down again, and then a costly turnover. Just a pass coming out of the zone, hits his Texas skate, comes right back to the front of the net, and it's in the back of the goal before the Moose could realize they were in danger. So that kind of iced things. The Moose unable to get going from there. Didn't really muster much with the net empty, so Texas ends up burying an empty netter, and it's 6-3. So the Moose, it's not like they played terribly. I thought Texas played extremely well, but they just didn't have the same jump, and that's something that they're going to have to find going into game 2 where their season's going to be over.
It's there's some interesting comparisons between the Jets and the Moose, the way that you just mentioned it out. I mean, certainly did a lot of good things. But when the coaching staff goes back through the video and discusses what happened with the players, a lot of the problems or the goals against kind of were from their own doing to begin with. And, if you can manage the puck a little bit better and try and minimize the mistakes that can be so costly at this time of year, give them a much better chance to win. But I'd imagine there's still a lot of confidence in that room that they can come back and make a point of booking a game on Friday night for the series.
Yeah, it's interesting. You kind of go into these games, not so much during the regular season, but in the postseason when every game is so important, you kind of think about, okay, what we know what the Moose can do well. What worries you about that game? What's kind of the flip side? What's going to go wrong if they're going to come out on the wrong side of it? And the Moose kind of checked almost every single one of those boxes yesterday. And the thing is, they're all things that they can clean up and have cleaned up in the past. I mean, this is a team that in the second half hasn't lost back-to-back games very often. It's a team that has proven to be very resilient. I mean, we even saw it in last night's game where the Moose are down by 3. They managed to get it back to a 1-goal game before Texas is able to kind of stem that tide. So they're a very resilient group. They're resting up today, getting the guys kind of a day off here. It has been a bit of a long haul. They've been on the road for a while, so a chance for them to kind of reset, refocus, and then they'll get back to it tomorrow for that big game. So there's certainly a lot of firepower on this Moose team, a lot of players that I think are looking at themselves saying, I didn't have the best game and I can improve. And on the other side of things, Texas kind of maybe gets some of that out of their system too. I mean, they were due to tag the Moose back here, and they certainly did. But obviously that's a team on the other side that has a bit more confidence and now can say, hey, we got some guys back in the lineup here for this game, and look at the success we had. So they're probably feeling pretty good about themselves now with 2 chances to try and close out the Moose.
Couple assists for Ville Heinola and a couple for Kyle Capobianco. And we'll talk about Ville in a minute, but Capo has been a constant on our conversations talking about the Moose all year long. And, after basically spending all of last season in the press box for the most part with the Winnipeg Jets, has had just a monster season and acknowledged today as such with the Eddie Shore Award. I mean, talk a little bit, if you would, about winning the top defenseman in the American Hockey League and the impact he's had on this team all year and how important he'll be Thursday night in trying to get this series back to even.
Sorry, wind picked up there. Just about launched my computer off my bag here to get it a little elevation here. Sorry. I mean, for Kyle Capobianco, I mean, what a season he has had. And now in my 8th season of closely watching American Hockey League play, he is one of the most dynamic players I've ever seen at this level. I mean, it is remarkable what he does with the puck sometimes. Just situations in his own zone, you think, oh, there's 2 forecheckers on him, he's going to have to rim this out, and then all of a sudden he's dancing through both of them and leading the rush back the other way. Or a quick spin move in the offensive zone to gain himself some space, and then a backhander right up under the bar. The things he can do to buy himself time, to create openings for his teammates, to find those openings, to set guys up, and then on top of it all can finish the play when it's there. It is remarkable to watch. He ends up with 54 points during the regular season. He was the only defenseman, in the AHL with over 50 points this season, and led the defenders in assists with 42, was 7th in the league in that regard. Just an outstanding player. And funny enough, the Moose have now had their 2 franchise Defenseman of the Year wins in the past 7 years, both of them recording 54 points in the season that they did it, with Sami Niku being the previous to do it. So it's just been an incredible season. Along with those gaudy offensive numbers, he was a plus 29 as well on a team that overall was about a -15. You work out some of the power play things, stuff like that, and it stays kind of around there. So for a guy that on a team that the next closest was about a plus 13, and then it trickles down to around even from there. To be so far ahead of his teammates, to be so far ahead of most of the defensemen in that top 20 scorers was just very, very impressive. And then he goes out and puts up 2 more assists last night. So and he's just been such a boon for the Moose in a season where they lost Declan Chisholm, they lost Leon Gavanka, they didn't have Ville Heinola until midway through the season. They needed somebody to provide some offense, and he's done it in spades.
Speaking of Ville, he had that star-crossed season, great training camp, injured in the final preseason game, serious injury, which cost him well into the new year. How would you just assess his play overall and where he's at right now after 2 assists last night in a playoff game?
Yeah, it's again, as we've talked about with Ville, it's been a season of kind of getting back to where he was at the beginning of the season, because it takes time. And going through what he's been through is really, really hard on a player, especially the injury that he suffered. So when you deal with what he has, I mean, it takes time to get back up to speed, and it's been a battle for him to do so. And we kind of saw him kind of rounding into playoff form, and we've seen the past couple of playoffs where Ville Heinola has really been able to elevate his game. He seems to excel in the physical nature of it. He seems to take that challenge and run with it. He's a guy now with 2 assists last night, 8 points in 10 playoff games. So he's been able to produce from the back end in his now 3 postseasons with the Moose. So he had that 5-point game, back on Friday, 4 assists and 1 goal to match the Moose franchise record for points in a game by a defenseman. He was 1 off of matching the overall franchise record for points, 12th player to pick up 5 points in a game. So we were starting to see that. He picks up a couple of assists. I think first period he kind of got beat a couple of times and made some adjustments to how Texas was trying to attack him to the outside, things like that. So he'll obviously have to be a big contributor for the Moose if they're going to come back in this series. And with him and Capobianco manning on the blue line, the Moose certainly have some good options offensively.
Dan, well, we've got you a lot of interest in chat from Jet fans about Colby Barlow, who looked pretty darn good scoring his first pro goal last week. How's he fit in with the club? What have you seen from him, and just how's things going for the young Jet first rounder getting his first taste of AHL action?
Yeah, he's played in 3 games now over in the regular season, and we saw him kind of that first game. Didn't get a lot of touches on the puck. When he did, you could see those great hands that he has. The one thing that caught me was a dump in that he managed to reach behind his back, get a bit of a tape on, and tip into the zone rather than an icing call. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what that guy brings. Didn't get to see that patented shot at all in that first game. Well, the second game, he gets out there on a 4-on-3 power play with Billy Heinola, and Heinola was looking for him the whole time. Finds him, and there's that bomb from the circle, and he rips it home for his first AHL goal. Then goes out later on subsequent power play, puts a beautiful backhand dish across the ice to Simon Lundmark, who buries. So you can see how he can be an absolute offensive weapon. Of course, really tough for a player to step in this time of year and kind of learn the systems, learn pro hockey. There's a lot going on, and the Moose really trying to be careful with him and ease him into the situations where he can be successful, and then picked up another power play point in the season finale as well. So that's what the Moose want to see, I'm sure, is him finding those offensive opportunities, getting comfortable, and certainly he's going to be a treat to watch in the power play coming up in the future.
Finker, I also have to ask, I mean, it was so cool being in the building for Game 82 for the Winnipeg Jets, because we got a chance to see Brad Lambert and Nikita Chibrikov make their NHL debuts. They both got on the score sheet. Chibrikov with a great goal, which I believe ended up being the winner. How did that experience go for them, and how were they received back by their teammates when they rejoined the club in Austin getting ready for the playoffs?
There were a few, oh, good, now we're going to have to bring them back down to earth here when they get back. Those heads aren't going to fit through the door after those games. It's always, for my money, the best part about working in the American Hockey League is seeing those players advance to the NHL. And Huss, as you know, because of COVID in that 21-22 season, when it seemed like everybody made their NHL debut, we didn't get to experience one of those for a little bit, because guys who maybe would have made it the next season made it a bit early. So to go a little while without seeing that, to go through that excitement to that day of the players, they're going to get into it, and the whole staff is buzzing, the players are buzzing, everybody's watching the game, everyone's keeping track of it on social media, and it was really exciting. And then to see them go out there, and Lambo picks up an assist in the first period right away, he's flying up and down the ice. Chibrikov gets that goal in the third period, and you can see the emotion for a guy who keeps it pretty cool most of the time, how excited and amped up he was for that goal, and just to see the way Jets fans were excited to see them on the ice and really embrace them. It was really, really cool, and it's so exciting to see that. And you know what? It was great to see them have that success. They come back, they jump right in. It was a busy week for those guys, especially when you consider they played in Milwaukee, flew in the morning to Winnipeg, got into the game, got up the next morning, flew back down to Texas. Parker Ford, who didn't make his debut but was there for warmups, played in that game on Friday. So he was back and forth. The other two got the break, and then we're back into the lineup and contributors, of course, on Saturday. So it was certainly quite the week for those players, and really exciting to see them make their debuts.
Dan, just before we go, tomorrow's big game 2 will hopefully create a game 3. Where's the team at today? Off day. How are the Manitoba Moose just kind of recovering from yesterday and getting ready for what's at stake tomorrow night?
Yeah, taking a bit of a recovery today, a few players on the ice, but overall the bulk of the playing group there from last night, getting a day here to kind of rest and reset, refocus, and look towards their biggest game of the season. I mean, this is a team that's been fighting for their playoff lives for the entire second half. This is nothing new to the Manitoba Moose. They've battled from behind all season long. They've been one of the best comeback teams in the American Hockey League throughout the campaign. And so this is a team that has been kind of forged by that fire already. This is nothing new. They're ready to go. They'll be ready to go tomorrow. They learned a lot, I think. 7 players made their AHL playoff debut, including some of their more veteran players like Axel Jonsson-Fjallby and Christian Reichel. Of course, AJF got into a playoff game with the Jets last year, but there's a lot of lessons learned, and I think this is going to be a bit of a different team that you see with their backs up against the wall against Texas tomorrow, and really looking forward to it.
Fink, appreciate you as always. Fill people in on where they can catch the game tomorrow night.
Yeah, we'll have the game starting for you at 6:45 Central Time with the pregame show on CJOB.com/sports and AHL TV, and puck drop just a little after 7 from deep in the heart of Texas. And the Moose looking to save their season here, as it is a best-of-3 series, and they have their backs up against the wall. So certainly should be an entertaining hockey game between the two clubs. One
way or the other, we'll be talking next week. Let's, fingers crossed, we're talking about a big rally in Austin and some home games for some Calder Cup playoffs down at Canada Life Center. Thanks so much for doing this, and good luck to the fellas.
Thanks, Austin. Hopefully next time we talk, we'll be teeing up round 2.
You got it. There's Daniel Fink, voice of the Moose. Again, game 2 tomorrow, and game 3, if necessary, Friday night down in Austin, Texas. Have to thank our great sponsors and friends at Princess Auto. You know them well. Probably one of the most popular sponsors because of all the cool stuff they have at their stores. But Princess Auto, proudly founded in Winnipeg, headquartered in Winnipeg, and such a big part of our community. And, of course, our sports community is supporters of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, now playing their games out of Princess Auto Stadium, the Winnipeg Jets, Gold Eyes, and, of course, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or you can shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. Well, as spring is here, gang, we mentioned those lists. If a new fence is on your list, there's only one place to call, and that is Wallace & Wallace, the fencing and overhead door experts in Winnipeg for over 7 decades. Of course, you've seen their fences and trucks all over the city, and you're going to be seeing them a lot more as installation is beginning right now on new fencing projects, which means the sooner you can get that order in at Wallace & Wallace, the sooner you and your family will be enjoying summer on your side of a brand new fence. Your best bet is to go to wallacefences.com for more information. You can give them a phone call at 452-2700 for a free estimate. And of course, you can also pop down and see them at their showroom on Lawson Crescent, just off of Route 90. And man, we saw a lot of great suits and outfits yesterday at the game. Maybe not necessarily for the whiteout, but for life, if you need some nice new outfits, you got to get down to F Apparel, the #1 store for custom men's clothing in Winnipeg, with custom suits beginning at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. 15% discount for wedding parties. So if you are in a wedding, or having a wedding, or in a wedding party, talk to the fellas there about getting the guys looking great for the big day at a great deal at F. And of course, they've also got a great promotion as well for high school graduates needing a suit for the big day that they can wear long beyond their high school graduation. F Apparel's at 190 Smith Street downtown. You can also make an appointment and find out more online at that's EPHapparel.com. And, you know, I pumped into my pal Pat Trudell, one of the guys that makes Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge go, last night at the game. And they are going to be up on the plane in a week, opening the fishing season at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. If you are looking for an unbelievable fly-in fishing experience where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, Aikens is the spot. Whether it is for a corporate outing with customers, clients, staff, or just family and friends, there's nothing like the Aikens Lake experience. And as great as the fishing is, the hospitality of the Terrence family and the Aikens team might be even better. Find out more online about availability for the 2024 fishing season today at aikenslake.com. All right, Remo, pop back in here. We are going to get Ken Wiebe on the show. Ken's coming back from Jets media availability before the team goes wheels up to Denver. And I guess we should also quickly hear from Kyle Connor, because I know we'll be talking about KFC as well as the Jets overall when Ken jumps on the program with us shortly.
Yeah, great talk with Dan about the Moose in Texas there. So game 2 goes tomorrow. But yeah, I'm just monitoring the chat. I've had a couple Denver fans, Huss.
I saw some Avs fans coming in. Hey, Avs fans are probably feeling pretty darn good about themselves today. We talked about that yesterday. I mean, the game 2, and I get it. I mean, listen, if I'm on the Avs side of things right now, I'm feeling great. I mean, you could argue that they somehow lost a game in which they scored 6 on Connor Hellebuck, and last night's game was either going to come back in a 2-0 hole or finding a way to win a game and feeling like you probably should be up 2-0. So, as long as everyone keeps it respectful, we love having people from other markets come in. Always fun hockey talk. But hey, much like all the Jet fans were fired up after game number 1, it's not surprising that the Avs fans have some real confidence after what they were able to show against Winnipeg in these first 2 games here in the Whiteout.
Yeah, Eric Silva, Huss in chat, says thinks it's wild the way we're talking about the Jets, that the Jets did get outplayed in both games, and he feels like listening to guys talk about 3-2 overtime games. I kind of disagree. I mean, it was a 1-goal game in the first game, and it was pretty tight yesterday for the most of it, and the Jets have had the Avs number all year. So we'll see what happens. I think the Jets, need to get back to their their game, their defensive style, and we just haven't seen that for 2 games. And Connor Hellebuck, he's got a 5 goals against average in 2 games, and that's not really his numbers. And you look at all the goaltenders' numbers for the playoffs, he's closer to the bottom than the top, and we'll have to see if he can find that Vezina form. And I think there's reason to believe that he can, because he's done it all year.
Yeah, no, for sure. Hey, listen, were the Avs the better team for the most part in the first 2 games? Absolutely. But listen, that game last night could have easily turned on a couple things. I know some people mentioning the Kyle Connor post, that I believe would have put the Jets up by 2. Probably talking about a different game if that goes in. But listen, there's ups and downs. It's a 7-game series. You're not done till you got 4. Both teams have 1. Series on. We'll see you in Denver on Friday night. One of the guys leading the charge will be Kyle Connor. Connor spoke after the game and talked about where the game did unravel on the Winnipeg Jets in those last few minutes of the second period.
Yeah, just a little bit of the ebbs and flows of the game. They had a good push there. Maybe we didn't stick with it. I think, we could have done a lot better job of developing some offense in their zone, kind of getting some more zone time. I thought we were a little bit too quick to, 1 and out, get the puck in, maybe get loaded high, 1 shot, and they transition. I don't think we had too much sustained zone time. And, at the end of the day, it's about adjustments. I thought, our power play needed to be better. I don't think we were very good tonight, disconnected all over the ice. So we'll do some adjustments, and it's a 1-1 series. It's about that next game.
All right, I think a pretty honest assessment from Kyle Connor on the game last night, as well as their performance. I agree the power play wasn't good, wasn't good enough, to where they wanted to be. The one thing I'll say about Connor, I mean, I think they've got more to give offensively. But Remis, I will say this: there's a few specific moments in the game last night where I was particularly impressed with the tenacity Kyle Connor had on the back check, doing everything he can to help this team win. It really wasn't any of the things that maybe had been talked about in Kyle's game before, being less focused on the defensive side of the game. Certainly all in. It's a matter of making things happen offensively for his line, despite the fact that he had the goals in the first game, and obviously Scheifele had that beauty last night. Here's another one. We're going to get to this with Ken, so we'll play this. KFC talked about just the bench reaction to the Parise goal after that mess behind the net.
I think we did a good job realizing that, hey, that's a fluky one, right? How many times Connor goes back and plays the puck like that, and it's bang bang out, no problem. Maybe our forwards can do a bit better job of picking the forwards coming into. Maybe a little skate screen could help them out, and it's a team effort there. But at the same time, I think that's one of those there you just brush off. You're playing good at this point, and hopefully you follow up with that next shift.
And just one more from Connor, and this is a common theme we heard from Rick Bowness, from Mark Scheifele yesterday, the need for the Jets to make Georgiev's life a little more difficult in the Colorado net.
Oh, just like I was saying earlier, I think we need some more zone time. We were Yeah, it's just too quick in a lot of our plays. Getting shots blocked, they did a great job getting in lanes. We got to move more up top and supporting each other and just getting through that neutral zone. A couple turnovers too. It's killer in these type of games.
All right, good stuff from Kyle Connor. It sounds like Wiebe is ready to go. You know what time it is.
Wiebe's World, Wiebe's World, it's party time. Excellent, Wiebe's World, Wiebe's World, it's party time. Excellent, woo!
Woo is right. Ken Wiebe joins us now, back from seeing the Jets off to Denver. Wiebe, great to have you on the program. What's going on?
Yes, good afternoon, Andrew. Great to be with you. Beautiful time of the year, as we know. Tension has arrived in the series, and it's a good time to be covering hockey, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be a fantastic couple days of dissection and looking forward, and then we're going to see exactly where things stand. I mean, again, I understand some folks were getting fired up after the opener about the short series special here, but to me, this was always going to be a 6 or 7 game battle. It's a coin flip series now. Again, we know that where the Jets have a significant edge, and that's between the pipes. But to this point, that edge has not been as the gap has not been as wide as we suspected, and I expect that Connor Hellebuyck, his best games are to come. But right now, the Jets have not exploited that disparity enough. Yes, they got 7 in game 1. There's no doubt about that. But they didn't generate enough for me in game 2. I thought, Rick Bowness and Josh Morrissey both thought they played better in a lot of areas in game 2, but it didn't translate into success. So that means they're going to have to find another gear. And Connor Hellebuyck is going to have to steal at least one of the next 2 games here for the Winnipeg Jets. And again, I'm not saying 50 saves, stand on your noggin, but Connor was dialed for the first 15 shots he faced yesterday, Huss. It looked like he was big and boring, making hard saves look routine. And then the door kind of opened a little bit. And, I'm not saying it was a terrible effort by him by any stretch, but, the face-off goal, I still think it was screened by Logan.
This wasn't up to the level. He's spoiled.
He's not playing his level. Sorry.
It's
not even spoiled, Huss. He's given up 10 goals in 2 games. Like, there's under no circumstance is that going to be enough for most teams. I mean, the Jets showed a lot by scoring 7 in the opener. You can't expect your team to score 5, 6, and 7 when you are consistently allowing 3 or fewer or 2 or fewer. And again, the Jets need to be better in front of him, but there is a reason he is going to win the Vezina, and he needs to be playing with Vezina form as the series becomes a best of 5 if the Jets want to advance. That's not pointing the finger. That's a fact. The Jets have the best goalie in the NHL. He cannot be outplayed by Alexander Georgiev or anyone else who appears in this series if the Jets want to move forward.
Ken, listen, we'll talk big picture about the series after we kind of get through yesterday's game. What did you make of the second period? Well, actually, first off, back to the first. Like, I love the Jets start. Very, very different story than what we saw in game number 1, where the Avs came out like a house on fire. It was 11-1 in shots 6 minutes into the game. I thought that the Avs really leveled up in the second half of the first period. And that sort of that carried them into the second period, where they did carry the play. They had more chances, opportunities, and it's sort of like, I know we can talk about the mess behind the net for the third goal and the weird circumstances around the killer at the end of the second period, but we kind of saw the Avs building towards a big period in the second half of the first.
No doubt, Husson. I think that's sort of what's getting glossed over on a lot of bingo cards here. And that honestly is when Connor Hellebuyck was at his best in the second half of the first period. And that's why I think it was such a surprise that the floodgates opening is a bit of an exaggeration when there are 4 goals scored. But to me, the Avalanche started tilting the ice, Huss. I don't know if it was right at 10 minutes, but in between the 9 and 11 minute mark, then the bulk of the play was being spent in the Jets zone, in the Jets defensive zone. And that's why I thought Connor Hellebuyck I thought it was going to be one of those nights where it was going to be almost impossible to beat him. which is kind of what made it surprising that the door opens up with the Miles Wood goal. And then from there, the Jets kind of just, great tip by Lehkonen, of course, again, and lots of people getting on Hellebuck, a terrible puck handler. Those folks need to wake up, Huss. Like, he's been that is an area that he has improved significantly.
He's completely turned it around. I mean,
Yes.
we remember the Helly shock collar days in the WST chat where we joked that the coach is pressing the button the minute he heads out of the blue paint. He's been, listen, I think Murat and I had the conversation, and I brought it up. I mean, we hadn't talked enough about it. It has been something he's obviously worked on and become much better. But Ken, at the same time, that is what made that third goal so devastating, in that he'd sort of taken that out of his game, and yet it reared its head at the most of inopportune times.
Yeah, and a couple things on that too. Could he have moved it quicker? Sure, but the outlet, I don't think the outlet was there as much as it should have been either. But I understand. I mean, Connor's a guy who he freezes the puck around his net with great frequency. So again, if he wants to cover it up there, fine by me. Yeah, I mean, a lot of things happened there. On the puck, it was a bit of a tough goal for sure. Didn't get you either got to wrist that around quickly or move it behind the net, whatever you're doing. It just didn't happen quickly enough. And then from there, the Jets kind of, again, it's hard to point the finger at being lost in coverage because you're just not expecting that play to happen. But again, it's a costly goal. It ended up in the back of the net, and it kind of turned the tables a little bit too in terms of momentum, and at least in terms of where I was coming from, Huss, because when the Jets got the 2-1 goal from Scheifele, it's such a beautiful pass by Velarde, great nonverbal communication, and just incredible intellect by Scheifele, who explained to me after the game, Huss, if you're stretching out with both hands to get that, Jack Johnson is hooking you, slashing your stick, and just not allowing that opportunity to even get to the net, let alone get behind the goaltender. But instead of kind of rallying, again, Kyle Connor has the great chance, rings it off the post. Maybe if that gets to 3-1, maybe it's a different game. But it was just one of those nights where the Colorado Avalanche showed the resiliency of a champion. And that's what I wrote about, and that is how I feel about the game. That's not to say the Jets don't have resiliency, but that is what you get from when you have scar tissue, when you get to the top of the mountain, when you overcome adversity at the highest level with great frequency, as the Avalanche have done, notwithstanding a first-round exit last year. So the inability to get it to 3-1, and again, Kyle had a great chance to do so. So no issues with that right there. But the Jets didn't really respond overly well after falling behind, giving up the late goal with 6.9 seconds.
How did you see that one get down? Because I mean, it started off where it was sort of like, okay, the period's just about to end.
Oh, sure.
Ehlers falls or gets
banana
tripped,
peel,
depending on
banana
who
peel.
you're
No, I mean
talking to.
Yeah, I don't see that as a tripping minor. And if it were one, you would have seen a Nikolai Ehlers flip out or a Rick Bowness, whatever. To me, was the stick near the feet? Maybe, but that's a player losing an edge and falling down. And I think the issue is, again, and some people thought it was too casual that Nikolai tried to play it from his behind rather than, I don't know, grab onto the stick, try to get the puck down low. Say whatever you want. You're not expecting that to happen. You're Nikolai Ehlers. You are in control of the puck. You are trying to make a play. Whether you get a goal late in the period or not is not relevant. But of course, you're trying to make an offensive play. You're an offensive player. You have the puck in the offensive zone, and it's almost 200 feet away from your own net. You don't see any trouble in that scenario. Now, could he have gotten up a little bit quicker? Maybe. But Artturi Lehkonen pounced on the puck, got it to McKinnon. McKinnon finds the imperfect storm or the perfect storm, depending on which point of view you might be taking. The one thing that I didn't love about it, and I said it, if you're the Jets, you cannot be giving up a goal when you have possession of the puck in the offensive zone under 10 seconds to go under any circumstance. Now, I understand it's very odd that there's a coincidental minor coming. Some people trying to blame Velarde. Sorry, Josh Manson has a 3 or 4 stride advantage based on where the penalty box door is. So this isn't a lazy player. So to me, the biggest issue And I know that Gary Galley said it on the broadcast. I didn't hear it firsthand, but heard it secondhand, that the Jets were conveying that the penalty was coming to an end, which is what you need to do in that scenario. And obviously, Josh Morrissey is the left shot defenseman on the left-hand side where Nikolai Ehlers has the puck. He needs to be a support valve for him there. To me, the bigger issue is, and I'm not blaming Dylan Sandberg by any stretch, but the right defenseman in that scenario, Huss, needs to kind of peel back a little bit into the neutral zone for me, knowing that there is a guy coming out of the penalty box to at least be a deterrent in terms of it not being a crisp direct pass from Nathan MacKinnon to Josh Manson. That maybe doesn't prevent the breakaway, but it makes it a lot more difficult to get the pass through. And if that occurs, then, we're probably not talking about a breakaway goal that, quite frankly, Huss, that was the backbreaker. And yes, the Jets got, a lot of zone time in the third period as the Avalanche sat back and everything else, but they didn't really generate enough for me in order to make a comeback that they were trying to do.
No, I'm with you on this. And you know what? When we've seen the Jets get handled by, Vegas earlier on in this season, Dallas at times, they get pushed to the perimeter. And it seemed like the Avalanche were more than willing to chase guys around and keep the puck outside. And moving forward, and I'm sure this is something that Rick Bowness and the coaching staff will be talking about the guys through video sessions and practice getting ready for Friday night, is the need to get the puck more into those dirty areas. And it was a common refrain from Bones and Scheif and Connor after the game. They need to do a better job of just making Georgiev's life a little bit more difficult in that net.
Yeah, the blue paint special. I mean, Nino Niederreiter has lived there all year, so has Gabriel Velarde. So fourth line did it. That's where the goal for David Gustafsson comes from. Crashing the net. Alex Iafallo crashes the net. Yes, Georgiev kicks out the big rebound. Juicy Lucy, and there it is on the tape and in the back of the net for his first playoff goal. But the Jets aren't getting to that blue paint enough, Huss, right? I mean, that's where the dirty goals are coming from, and that's where I think the Jets can try to exploit a bit of an advantage in this series. And again, not to say that the Avalanche don't go there. Mikko Rantanen goes there, and Valerie Nichushkin lives there. Miles Wood has been there. Ross Colton's been there. Their fourth line has been there also at times. But that is where the Jets, generate a lot. I would say the one thing, Huss, that I would say was encouraging for the Winnipeg Jets, I thought Nino Niederreiter looked a lot more like himself in that game, a little bit more disruptive on the forecheck, moving a little bit better. Obviously, we know he's still kind of, that's only four games back from the injury. So to me, I thought that line was generating a little bit more. And again, we know they scored in game one, but the underlying numbers weren't painting as rosy a picture, even though they did come up with the two excellent goals in the game that were very important. I thought they did a much better job, disrupting the offensive generation by Nathan MacKinnon and company. That line didn't generate very much against them again, right? I mean, that was a big step forward on that front. And part of the reason was that the Lowry line made them play in the defensive zone for the Avalanche a little bit more yesterday. I thought Mason Appleton had a couple good chances. And again, if you're expecting Adam Lowry to outscore Nathan MacKinnon 2-1 in every game, I think you maybe got to readjust your sights, even though Adam Lowry is having a fantastic playoff so far, following up what he did in the series against Vegas last spring. But Nathan MacKinnon had 140 points. He's probably going to win the Hart Trophy. As good as Adam Lowry is at his job, it's going to be hard for Adam Lowry to outscore Nathan MacKinnon on a nightly basis, no matter how you chalk it up, Huss. But the fact that the Jets were able to limit Nathan MacKinnon to one assist in the game, that's a win. It should be a win it's a check mark for them. Huh. The surprising thing for the Jets is that you could do that and lose the game 5-2.
It's an interesting comparison to how the Avs felt in game number one.
Yeah.
They score 6 goals on Connor Hellebuck and lose the game. And you're wondering, that's what we came and set out to do. We get it, and we still lose. Last night, you get a fourth-line goal, and the Lowry line does a hell of a job, despite the fact that MacKinnon seemed to be on the ice all night, in limiting him, I think, beyond what most people expected. and yet they lose the game. And Ken, I guess a lot of the conversations need to focus in on the top six. And the guy said, Connor and Scheifele, they do need some more no zone time. They need to generate more. I would say that's particularly the case for line 2, which has looked really good at times, but just has not yet had the impact in the series that the Jets are looking for.
Yeah, completely. Again, for the first part, Huss, the top line is doing its job. They're getting more than they're giving up, right? That's the whole reason why people said they can't play together. That has not been a factor at all so far in the series. And yes, the Scheifele line was on for the fumble by Hellebuck when he got his pocket picked. I'm sorry. People can blame, they've got plenty of opportunity to blame that line for not being good enough defensively. They don't have that. That's not on them under any circumstance. And nor has it been on them in terms of getting hemmed in countless times in their own zone. And you touched on it before I came on, Huss. I caught the tail end. Kyle Connor's been a ferocious back checker and probably playing some of his best defensive hockey we've ever seen.
No doubt about it.
I don't want to hear the narrative that Scheifele and Connor can't play together. They're getting buried, blah, blah, blah. It's just not accurate. I'm sorry. They're not giving up a ton of high danger chances. The shot volume, we talked about this a lot. Huss, it's not a high shot volume line. They bury the chances they get because they are great finishers. So if you're Rick Bowness, you're not concerned about that. But at the same time, I thought that the second line, the Monahan line, was pretty steady in game 1. No, they didn't generate, a ton, but to me, they generated enough, Huss, that they could have been rewarded. And the far more important thing for me in game 1, in the game filled with chaos, is that line didn't give up almost anything defensively. But in game 2, I understand their underlying numbers weren't as bad. I just didn't see them generating as much as I need to see from them. If I'm Rick Bowness, this is simple. We've been talking all year. Nikolai Ehlers is a important play driver for the Winnipeg Jets. He's not driving play enough in the playoffs so far. You know it. I know it. Nikolai Ehlers knows it. So I'm not concerned about him if I'm Rick Bowness. But the facts are that second line needs to produce us. This is simple. Tyler Toffoli is a big game player. He's a clutch player. He hasn't done a whole lot to check into this series so far. He's been kept off the board. He had a couple chances in game 1. I didn't see a real dangerous chance for him in game 2, Huss. Only one shot attempt. That's not enough for Tyler Toffoli, whether it's at even strength at on the power play. This guy's a sniper around the net. I see him involved physically, but we know he doesn't play with the pace of a Kyle Connor or Nikolai Ehlers. So that means he needs to be getting dangerous shots from the slot and being around the net. And Huss, he's one of those guys that can be a crease crasher, get to the dirty areas and deliver offense from there. I think Monahan's been fine. I think he's doing a nice job, Huss, as usual. Has he been as dominant as he was late in the season? No, but I like the way where Sean Monahan's game is. Nikolai Ehlers needs to do more. He'll be the first to tell you. He is a very, honest self-assessor. And, again, and I'm not blaming him for the turnover, but he's the kind of guy that needs to generate more offense, Huss. Like, it's just simple. He generates with his speed for himself and for others. And right now, we thought, again, that line, whether they were going up head-to-head with Casey Middlestat or against somebody else, that line could be a great separator in the series, and so far they haven't been that. So I asked Rick Bowness directly if he thought he needed more generated by the second line, and he said yes. He was very succinct, but he said, yeah, we need that second line to get going. Because Huss, quite frankly, all other 3 lines for the Jets have produced offense, and that's translated directly to actual goals, not expected goals, or whatever terminology we need to use. And again, I'm not anti-analytics here. Expected goals are important, but in the playoffs, the real goals are ultimately what wins out or loses out for teams. And, we talk about process all the time. That's a line that has to deliver actual goals. Again, whether it's 5-on-5 or on special teams, where we know that Ehlers and Toffoli are on the second unit. But actually, Huss, I think the second unit, when it's been out there for the Jets, has been pretty effective, quite frankly. So they need more 5-on-5. And again, that trickles down to everyone on the roster. But if I'd told you going into the series the Jets would have 2 fourth-line goals, that's pretty good. And we knew that the fourth line could also be a differentiator in this series. And so far, they have been. But, you Yesterday, Parise's goal was when he was down on the fourth line.
So yeah, I was about to say
the fourth line was just even in that game.
It's happening for the Avalanche as well.
And not just the fourth, Huss. We were talking about Lowry's line being great. Well, Ross Colton and Miles Wood have also been great with Joel Kiviranta. They've also got 2 goals in the series. So, I'm not great at math sometimes, but, if Wood's got 2 and Lowry's got 2, even though they're not playing against each other, the Avalanche will take that every single day of the week, knowing how, solid that Lowry line has been for the Winnipeg Jets this year. And again, most things are pretty even so far in the series, which is what you would expect when you're looking at 2 teams that are, again, reminding folks at home, this is a coin flip series, regardless of the 7-0 win in Colorado and the fact that Jets were second and not third. But now both teams have an opportunity to elevate. There is room for improvement on a lot of fronts for both teams. Now it's about execution and getting the job done. Huss, I think, Cale Makar's probably, for most people's money, been the best player in the series for either team. But Josh Morrissey is also playing at his level, which, again, that's a win for the Winnipeg Jets to me. So, again, do the Jets have somebody that can go toe-to-toe with McKinnon and his 140 points in the regular season? That's a tough ask. But Morrissey's basically gone toe-to-toe with Cale Makar. So now some of these other guys that have an advantage need to take advantage if the Jets want to regain the advantage in the series.
You know what? I was kicking this out in the Why Not question of the day earlier. And, just there were times last night where you're watching the game and I'm in the stands and, you're living and dying with every play. But you just take a minute to look at the studs that Bednar is throwing over the boards. And I'll ask this to you. Is there a better 5-man unit in the National Hockey League than McKinnon, Rantanen, Nichushkin, Makar, and Taves?
I mean, there are several that would probably be in the conversation for sure, but they wouldn't be on the tip of your very tongue, I guess, if you will. There are some elite players around the NHL. Tampa probably has a chance, maybe if they go on a 4-forward set, to maybe go with that. But I mean, I don't, with Sergachev out especially, I don't think that it's, kind of on par with that. And the thing with Taves and Makar is that they're also good defensively, right? And that's the other thing too. I mean, in years past, you could probably, Edmonton's probably making a case if you have, Ekholm Bouchard with Hyman, Draisaitl, and McDavid, maybe.
Makar's he's just seemingly on another level than those guys. And anyways, it's just a fun conversation.
One more thing about the Avalanche. Like, Mikko Rantanen has not really, I understand he got a couple apples in the first game, but he's not playing Mikko Rantanen hockey where he's like throwing guys to the side and you can't knock him off the puck. The reason why, and I said this, as you know, with Sean last night on the postgame show, the reason Jared Bednar pushed the nuclear option is because Rantanen is kind of not at Rantanen levels. And when I say that, Rantanen has been effective in the series, Huss, but this is 100-plus point player. And he's not dominating right now. The Jets have kept him under wraps, but they're having trouble containing Nichushkin, who's such a powerful skater. He's got a great shot. He's incredibly sound defensively. He's a good penalty killer. And guess what? He is going to the blue paint. And at his size and stature, he's tough to contain, even for guys like Brendan Dillon, who are battling like nobody's business, for lack of a better term, in front of the net. So, yeah, I mean, the Jets have the guys that can answer, but it's got to be there's just seems to be a little bit more for almost every player to give. But the advantages that they were supposed to have in the series haven't really translated so far. And that's the reason why this is 1-1. And again, Huss, here's the beauty of the series. You got both coaches sitting in their offices with their staff thinking they could either be up 2-0, but could just as easily be down 2-0 if you look at some of the circumstantial evidence from the series itself, right? If you're Jared Bednar, you think, man, I mean, he wouldn't say it publicly, and he backed his goalie for 3 days in a row, but you got to be thinking if they got another save or two in game one, they could be going home up 2-0. But if you're Rick Bowness, you're probably thinking, with a break or two in game two, they might have been able to go up 2-0. So, Huss, to me, the series is exactly where both teams deserve it to be. And, sometimes that's not the case in the playoffs. There could be a crazy bounce here or a 5-minute major there that all of a sudden it's 2-0. This series has been mostly evenly played. If you take out the empty netter, what is it? So that's 4 and 6 for 10 goals for Colorado, and the Jets have got 9 without the empty netter. It's an even series. Star players pretty even, role players pretty even, goaltending, Hellebuyck won game 1, Georgiev won game 2 in the in the Sean Reynolds meter. Who was the better guy? Well, right now it's even. So is it going to stay even as the series goes on? I don't expect it to, but that's up to Connor Hellebuyck and the team in front of him to ensure that's the case. Because we've been here before. Connor Hellebuyck has gone in with an advantage in a lot of series, and because of what's happening in front of him, it didn't lead to an advantage with Cam Talbot in the bubble year. Now, again, circumstances. Scheifele out in the third shift, huge factor in that play. But, Connor Hellebuyck is a humongous advantage for the Winnipeg Jets, and he's got to lead the way. He's one of the leaders of this team. He's got to show that Vezina form in this series because the margin for error is so slim against those superstars that you just mentioned.
Well, listen, the superstars,
and he's one of them.
And
I got to say that too. Connor Hellebuyck is a superstar. I heard John Mitchell on Sirius yesterday saying the Jets have no stars. Now, again, he got around to the point saying that then you got Hellebuyck in net. Connor Hellebuyck is a legit superstar, in the NHL. And I think that guys like Morrissey and Scheifele and Kyle Connor as a 47-goal guy, should be in that conversation. But in terms of elite talent and guys that have been to the top of the mountain, the Avalanche have them, and the Jets want to get there. So they're going to need those star players to elevate their games, because we're expecting, even though, McCarr's been great and McKinnon's been really good, those guys have another gear still.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. We know that Hellebuyck has a few, and
for sure.
We need to see it starting on Friday night. You just mentioned Nichushkin for a minute, and this is totally off topic, but maybe the most incredible mystery in NHL history is how he played the 2018-19 season with the Dallas Stars, played in 57 games, and did not score a single goal. Like, I often go back and check Hockey DB just to make sure I'm remembering it correctly, because it didn't seem. And then the Avalanche got him as a reclamation project, and he's turned into a serious problem for teams, especially at playoff time.
It's wild, for someone to we talk about the mental side of the game, right? And Jared Bednar mentioned mental toughness first in direct conversation about Georgiev, but he quickly transferred it to the entire team. And to be that big, strong, fast, and skilled, and to be so down on yourself that you're not even able to get one to bank off your shin pad is almost impossible to do when you go to the areas that Nichushkin go. Like, this is not a perimeter player, So that makes it even crazier that a teammate couldn't bank one off of him, or he couldn't get an actual redirection, or even just be standing around the blue paint for a rebound to squirt onto your stick. But I love the fact that the Avalanche put him in a great spot, and whenever he's been available, and let's not forget, people down on the Avalanche because they lost in 7 last year to the Kraken. Like, not having Nichushkin was, for most of that series, was a humongous loss for them, already playing without Gabriel Landeskog. So yeah, I love the fact that he showed such, tenacity to bounce back from that season and not let it define him as a player. Since that time, he's become one of the most important players on a championship team, got his name on the trophy, and he honestly is one of the best two-way players. And I mean, Rick Bowness was around Nichushkin in Dallas, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And even in that year where he didn't score, the reason he was in the lineup so often is because he's so smart defensively, and he's a big body. He plays on the penalty kill. So you can use him it's just another reminder that, of course, you want guys to produce and perform, especially when they have that kind of a skill set and body type. But he was still an effective player, but his confidence was so shaken that he needed a change of scenery. And didn't Dallas also buy him out? I mean, I know he was a free agent, maybe, right? They bought him out. So, and then he became a really important player on a really good team, and that's a testament to the player itself. And there's a lot of stories around that in the league, but not many that have that much of a vast gulf between the 0 to the 20 plus, 30 plus. This guy is,
and let's face it, I think he's a heavily motivated player right now because you mentioned he was unavailable. We won't get into the circumstances surrounding his inavailability last year, but he didn't get hurt, and it was on him. And I think he's got a lot to prove to that organization, and he's doing it right now on the ice. Teams out. What was the vibe around the squad before jetting off to Denver today?
Yeah, I mean, just for people, it was just a quick availability again. So it's tough to tell anything about vibes. People coming off a shuttle from the charter area to the main airport. But Josh Morrissey came in. His vibes were at the normal level, fairly high, pretty confident. Steadying force as usual, but really seemed encouraged by how things have been going. And I mean, I had asked him directly about the Avalanche playing with their speed and how that is a challenge to the structure. And he's like, well, you know what? We've got speed and we've got skill and talent as well. I mean, they have to respect the Avalanche for sure. But again, the Jets have been fine in a lot of times during the series, but they haven't been able. For me, the biggest difference right now, the Avalanche have sort of imposed their will and style, and it's caused some hiccups for the structure, which has been the foundation for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, that's not to say the Jets aren't playing with speed, because they have their own players who are incredibly fast and are making things happen. But to me, the Jets haven't buttoned the series down as often as they would have liked. And outside of the first, 10, 12 minutes yesterday, they didn't really dictate the terms of play. And that's a challenge, of course. I mean, we said it, again, fortunate enough to have covered that 2022 Western Conference final and final involving the Avalanche. That year, we always talked about them playing at hyper speed. So that's a challenge for any team when you have McKinnon and Makar, two of the best skaters in the league, and then the powerful skating of guys like, Rantanen and Chushkin. So to me, I think that the Jets have another level. I don't think if you're the Jets, you're not panicking at all if you're the Jets, but you do need to do a couple things. You cannot feed the transition game because that's death against the Avalanche. And you do need to generate a little bit more around Georgiev. 30 shots, that's more than the 23 they had. But I don't think they were as many dangerous chances as they would have liked to have generated. And the chances that they did have, there are a couple, that either went into the crest or into the pads or whatever it takes, kind of building up the confidence of a guy who, probably wasn't enjoying the pull the goalie chant all that much. But hey, I got to tell you, Huss, I mean, for someone who they weren't even sure was going to be in net for game 2, or some observers, the guy stepped up and delivered. I mean, that you got to give the guy credit. And again, hearing him talk about the atmosphere in the building, some players could have crumbled under that kind of pressure, right? Bronx cheer, first save of the game, absolute classic, would give you every reason to have some self-doubt. He just didn't play with any doubt in the game, and that's why the Avalanche, part of the reason the Avalanche are back to even. And again, guy like Josh Manson, Huss, you talked about it all week. Tough go in game 1. And guess what? He's the first guy pointing the finger at himself saying, I've got to be better defensively. He was an absolute force for the Avalanche in the game itself. 6 hits, big goal, and I thought he was much better defensively. So again, those guys stepped up after a loss. Now it's up to the Jets to see what they can do. They have handled adversity during the course of the year, which is another subject that Josh Morrissey talked about. Rick Bowness saying, obviously, he's asked by Paul Friesen, glass half full or half empty. Of course, Bowness is going to, answer half full. But now again, the Jets have an opportunity to go up 2-1 or be down 2-1. And whether or not they are up or down doesn't mean the series is over either way. But of course, it's a chance to stabilize the series again if you're the Jets. You can't afford lengthy losing streaks in the playoffs.
You got to get one in Denver. This team is too good. You do not want to be coming back having to run the table completely. 3 straight against the Avalanche.
I just think too, Huss, the big thing, perspective is still required here, and it's because we know people are in the immediate hot take society. Now it's crumbling. The Jets just finished off a stretch of winning 9 of 10 games, right? 9 of 10.
Can't believe they lost a game. We thought they were never going to lose again.
16-0. Here you go.
Run the table.
Run it out. Here you go. But anyways, it's a good stretch of hockey with room for improvement. And the teams that improve when they get pushed by their opponent are the teams that advance.
Hey, a lot of people loving your shirt today and wondering whether you're hitting the club. You can maybe do the post game of KNR from the club Friday night, late night, after a 9:00 start. Is Rennie in Denver? Are you guys going to be doing it?
You will be, yeah. I'll be locking it down here. I'll be at Game 6. I'm glad folks like the FootJoy special here. I just figured it would be a little time to go a little camouflage for as the series gets into the trenches here. I went for a little camo look here. Great.
Is that short sleeve or a long?
It is a short sleeve here. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Breezy opened yesterday.
Special. Oh, good.
You're ready to go. We'll look forward to getting out there. But as they say, hopefully we can avoid any tee times for members of the Winnipeg Jets for a long time. The big key to that, though, is going to be finding a way to win at least one of the games in Denver and get this back on even terms at worst case scenario for Game 5 next week here at Canada Life Center.
Before we go, and I mean, for me, press box different view, obviously, but Sarah and Lesky and I took a twirl around the whiteout party, both before games 1 and 2, and it seemed like people really showing up well in the community. 2 sellouts, atmosphere pretty solid all around. What was it like in the seats, Huss? And again, you had to wait a long time for a win since 2018. I mean. Yeah. What was the building feeling like from the 300s these last 2 games?
Oh, well, to be honest, I've actually been in the lower bowl the last couple games. I'm, by the way, get well soon to my mom, who normally would be with my dad, wasn't feeling too well yesterday, so I went with him downstairs. But listen, it was magical. I mean, the first game and everything that led up to it in the plaza and in the street party and just in downtown Winnipeg was, literally was what I'm sure Mark Chipman imagined when this team came back and they did all that work to build up part of the downtown outside the arena. It couldn't have been any better. I will say this, the craziness of Game 1 was going to be difficult to match just because of what happened on the ice. The 8:45 puck drop, it definitely challenges the fans later on. And listen, if we had Sunday's game last night, I'm sure it would have been similarly bananas in the building. But with the Avalanche doing what they did in the second half of the second period, there was still a lot of positivity. The concourse was great in between periods, but people knew the team was up against it. And as hard as the Jets pushed, the fans did as well. But there is a bit of a law of diminishing returns when the team is down and you're that deep onto the clock for the day. So, assuming it's another 8:30 game, they're just going to have to deal with it. But I can tell you, there's nothing like some goals and wins to get people fired up. And, whether the Jets have their backs against the wall or can win the series or with 2-2, I know that people will be stepping up and ready to go for Game 5 after 2 pretty darn fun nights in the building in Games 1 and 2. Wiebe, thanks so much for doing this. Enjoy the games tonight, and we'll look forward to you and the national media firing it up after Friday night's 9 p.m. start on KNR.
Yeah, right on. We should go to the green room with the on the horn from our boy Tommy G right there.
You know what? Yeah.
Great to be with you. And hey, it's not every week that Pat McAfee is rocking a Jets jersey. So it'll be interesting to see. And also too, just quickly on the way out, I was covering the Manitoba Moose and Hamilton Bulldogs when Mr. PK Subban was getting booed back in those Moose days, and he embraced it then, and he still is embracing it now into his new role. So, anyways, great to be with you. Have a great chat with our guy Tommy G, and the Oilers benefited the most. I'm sorry, I'm not going to put words in Tom's mouth. Nobody benefited more from the last day of the season loss by the Vegas Golden Knights than the Edmonton Oilers, whose path I would not say is clear, but is a much less turbulent path than it might have been had it been the Oilers and Vegas Golden Knights in round 1.
Good stuff.
Tommy's going to be busy, is my prediction.
Yeah, I think
conference final at least for the mighty Oil.
Take it easy. There's Kenny Wiebe, and again, KNR after Jets hockey Friday night. on the Kenny and Rennie channel. I mentioned Ken's looking good, ready for the golf course. Jets aren't ready for the golf course yet. Did see the gang at Breezy opening day yesterday. So excited to get out there this year. If you want more information on Winnipeg's top private courses, go to breezybend.ca, and our pal Corey Johnson will let you know about what's coming up for the upcoming season, availability for wedding rentals and more, and of course getting on the waiting list to be a Breezy member for next year. All right, hey, we got to give a quick cheers to our friends at Little Brown Jug before Tommy jumps on the program.
We're not just for the showboats or the champions. We're here for the good ones, the ones who work hard and show up for others, not to get recognized, but because it's the right thing to do. We'd like to think that our good intentions show up in our beer. We keep working to perfect it, not because we want fame or fanfare, but because you deserve it. 1919, the good you deserve.
Speaking of 1919s, I know there'll be plenty of those being enjoyed Friday night by Jet fans, getting ready for Game 3, a 9 p.m. local start here in Winnipeg. If you're looking for a great spot to watch the game, head on down to Boston Pizza, the place for fans to team up for the Cup for the playoffs. They've got whiteout parties happening at every local BP, featuring their new playoff menu with wing flights, the new Sicilian square footer pizza, and jalapeno popper dip, whiteout shots as well, and the picker player contest, and some great contests for Jet fans. Every game, they'll be giving away P1 lower bowl playoff tickets, and you can also win a grand prize trip for 2 to the Stanley Cup final. Get your whitest, your brightest, and bring your crew to watch the playoffs at Boston Pizza. And if you do need to gear up with Jets gear in white, there's only one place to go for that. It's Royal Sports. They've got white tees, white hoodies, all the white jerseys. They've got white overalls, white hats, white fan chains. And while you're getting ready for Jet playoff action at Royal Sports, don't forget new inventory coming in daily for soccer season, baseball season, softball, running, bikes, and so much more. There's only one sports superstore in the Peg. That's Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. To Edmonton we go and bring in handsome Tommy Gazzola, who was looking $1 million US tax-free on a game day today at Edmonton. What's up, my man? Thanks for doing this.
Hello, Huss. Sorry. Hey, how about Kenny? Just pumping my tires. I got to give him some credit too. So, yes, I know he looks at the potential outcome for the Oilers, but what a beauty that guy is. So tough act to follow, but I'll try my best. I'll do my very best. Just thanks for having me. Great to be back on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And you're talking about the beers that are really flowing out here. We've got the 6 o'clocker lager available through Alley Cat. And how about this? Look what you've done, Huss. You created a monster with Winnipeg Sports Talk. So now EST, Dusty, myself, Awanik, Lieutenant Eric, and a couple of producers that we've hired, and especially our analysts, and Sean Bell, Matt Cassian, and Joaquin Gage, we have a birdie juice coming out. So
I heard about this. I mean,
yeah.
Listen, that is a absolutely perfect addition to the EST line, and I am looking forward to getting out there in the summer, hitting the links with you guys, and enjoying some of that birdie juice. I don't think the Oilers will be making tee times for quite a while. You know, Ken did make a great point, and I talked about this with Iwanek on EST doing the lock shop the last couple of days while Dusty gets back from his trip. That final night of the season, we all expected the Vegas Golden Knights to be the opponent for the Edmonton Oilers, and for Vegas to lose to Anaheim and then LA to come back from the brink against the Blackhawks of all teams to set up a very familiar foe in the LA Kings. Things sort of played right into their hands. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done to take care of LA. But when you look at what's happened in the other series with the loss of Demko, knowing that Edmonton maybe owns Nashville more than any other team in the NHL, it does seem like the path is pretty clear to the conference finals for the Oilers right now. What's the buzz in town about the start to the playoffs and where they're at heading into tonight?
People obviously super excited, but it's interesting, the path and the look ahead and all that. Here, it's not as feverish, I guess is how I would describe it. Yeah, people are pumped up, but I think it's kind of like a slow buildup. So there's an expectation that Edmonton finds a way to get past the LA Kings. And, if it can be done efficiently, 4 or 5 games, fantastic. But this team and everything it's gone through in the postseason the last couple of years, people do anticipate them getting to the second round, maybe even to the third round. People want to see the Stanley Cup here, just like any other market in the National Hockey League. But LA is going to put up a good fight. LA has a good team. The Oilers showed that they can play a mature game, and like they did in Game 1. So, I guess if you look ahead and go, boy, that looks like an easy route. In theory, yeah, but you got to put your money where your mouth is. A lot of our listeners and viewers too, Huss, although they are anxious and excited to see what Edmonton can do, they also know that this team can let itself and the fan base down at times, even with all the weapons the Oilers do have. It's kind of like a put up or shut up. I've seen a lot of that in our text line. So, yeah, one game at a time. We go cliche after cliche. But, if you take a look ahead, there is a potential nice path there, but I don't think that's the focus from either the fan base or especially from the team.
You know what's interesting? I read an article today that Remis sent over about Kings fatigue in the market, but also something that we found firsthand when the Jets went to the conference finals in 2018, but that's even at another level now, is just how expensive it is to go to these games.
Yeah.
And I'd imagine it'll be interesting to see. Like, I'm looking right now, there's plenty of seats available for the game tonight, although the building will be full.
Yeah.
I'd imagine that just with the exorbitant cost of going to these games and the expectation that Edmonton will get past LA and potentially past the next round, there's probably a lot of people that are sort of waiting to get into playoff fever and get down to the rink. And that's a dangerous place and not a place that I think the league or the teams actually want to be in.
No, good point. And, we're seeing and hearing a lot of that, just talking to people, running into them around town, season ticket holders that are saying, well, you know what, if the series goes long and it's dicey, then maybe I'll go to Game 5, maybe I'll go to Game 7. But part of this with people that own season seats is they try to recoup some of the expenses back. Ticket prices for the postseason go, I think, upwards of 30% more than the regular season prices. And then you go round by round breakdown and it just gets ridiculous. And I know that, Alberta, it's a different environment when it comes to the economy and the amount of people that are here that could potentially buy tickets. And you're right, they'll probably get snapped up, but people still watch their wallets here. People are very conscious of how much they're spending, the food price, all the inflation, that still pisses people off, and it does affect their bottom line. So even though, maybe more people are able to get out to games, they're still being very budget conscious about it. And the Oilers, they have to be careful how they push, and they can't just keep beating up people's wallets the way they have. So there weren't a lot of empty seats. There were a few rows that were empty, and I think those were resales in Game 1. But for the majority of it, it was packed, and I think it's going to be more of the same. And Kings fatigue is an interesting term, but I think it does come with the expectation that this team progresses through the playoffs, and people are trying to be a little bit budget savvy and at the same time maybe entrepreneurial as well, Huss, and recoup some of those costs, save up their bucks for the second, potentially third round. Who knows, maybe Stanley Cup final. But yeah, you got to be careful. It's a fine line, honestly.
It is. And I mean, then when the league takes over and cranks it up even more, I mean, like that conference playoff run basically bankrupted the city of Winnipeg for the most part back in 2018. You'd love to have that problem again because it means your team's winning. But like, I'm just pulling up Ticketmaster for tonight. And I mean, an upper bowl seat, 5 rows from the top, is $305.
Yep. I'm not even surprised anymore, honestly. I've had a lot of friends that are season ticket holders. They're like, hey, does this team have an actual shot of going to the third round? I'm like, sure, but there's like 7 other really good teams. So you got to be careful how you go about this. Yeah. And then, you know what? I don't know, like the pictures have been floating around there, but every round, I think I can't remember the percentage of the increase, but ultimately ends up being about a 30% increase over regular season seats. And, they do the pom-poms. I'll bring it home with this. They do the pom-poms for the games, every home game, but on every seat, there's also a season seat holder placard to buy your season seats, because that's how they want to get you into roped into the season seats to guarantee your playoff tickets. And I saw that going into game one. I'm like, maybe that's a sign that they should internally look at how they reassess and reset their prices for next year if they're already putting those out. So it's interesting, and you can only go to the well so many times. And again, like, we have a bigger population than Manitoba. Edmonton's, I think we're just around 1.4 million. People fly in for these games. They travel in from Northern Alberta, but you know what? At some point, people are just going to be like, nah,
there's
I can't
a breaking
do this.
point. There's a breaking point for fans. And I think we kind of feel it here in Winnipeg, being the smallest market, even sooner than other places. And there was some talk about some of the, the season ticket base earlier on this year that they're working really hard to get done. And listen, it's not something that really the NHL wants people to be talking about right now, but it's pretty hard to ignore, especially when you have the best player in the world playing for an incredibly exciting team that has such high hopes, and you can just basically walk up and grab a seat. I mean, credit to Winnipeg fans for jumping on everything right away. And I will say this, and I guess I'll plug what the Jets are doing right now, because I mean, we'll see what happens if there is a second round here. That's a big if, but they have extended the plan where if you do put a deposit down on seats for next year, you can get playoff tickets in advance for that playoff price. And I can tell you, having seats myself, like, I think my tickets in the upper bowl are $117 a pop. And listen, if you sold those, I mean, I was just kind of checking some of the resale sites. They're going for way, way more than that. How long that will be the case, we will see. But at a certain point, I mean, it's just a straight up economic equation as to how much the market will bear. And NHL teams certainly know to squeeze every last buck out of the folks, and certainly with that new arena there, Daryl Cates has been doing his thing. Just quickly on the series, Tom. I mean, 5-point night for McDavid right out the gate. Zach Hyman with the hat trick. I mean, it could not have started any better for the Oilers, and that's a very stark contrast to the way they played in game ones lately. I'd imagine this is just a huge confidence builder for a team that they know very well in their opponent in the LA Kings going into tonight.
Yeah, confidence builder, good way to put it. Huss said that was the first game one win of any series that the Oilers have had since the second round of 2017 against Anaheim. And then that was the first home game one win for the Oilers since May 2nd, 1990 against the Chicago Blackhawks. Pardon me.
That's bananas.
It's insane. And it tells you how bad that the Oilers have been in the 90s and the early 2000s. Obviously, the decade of darkness, not making the postseason between 2006 and 2017. But yeah, 34 years between home playoff game one wins. That's how long it's been. But they did play a very thorough game. I thought that their mental fortitude was there. They didn't get goaded into taking bad penalties when the Kings were trying to, get those little shots in skirmishes after whistles. And the Oilers actually took advantage of that, because the Kings wound up taking a few penalties and the Oilers went 3 for 4 on the power play. PK went 2 for 2. That's good. LA does have some weapons, but Edmonton was able to keep them at bay. And so just defensively as well, I think was the big thing. I thought the Oilers were really thorough. There was a bit of a slip up later in the game, and the Oilers talked about a couple of lucky goals going in, but that was a reminder to them that they need to keep their pedal to the metal. And tonight, Huss, I mean, LA is going to come out hard. They're going to push and push and push. First 5 to 10 minutes, crucial. We'll see if the Kings can get a lead, and we'll see how the Oilers weather the storm, and we'll see if Edmonton's able to turn the tide. Because if the Kings manage to get one by Stu Skinner early, maybe even 2, we're going to see that 1-3-1, played to perfection by LA. To Edmonton's credit, they've handled the 1-3-1 very well, but adjustments will be made. So this game, I think, is going to be a little bit tighter than what we saw in that 7-4 game one Oilers victory.
Well, the Kings will certainly want it a little bit tighter. That's not the way they drew it up. The 1-3-1 doesn't work when you're trailing all game and going up against the likes of McDavid. Hey, just before we go, Tommy, what do you make of the situation in Vancouver? I mean, listen, the Canucks have had a magical season. Nobody saw this coming. But to lose Demko potentially for the series out of game one and then drop game two in a very low event tilt last night, tough situation for the top team in the Pacific.
Yeah, there's going to be zero remorse for the Canucks and their fans from this part of the world. But you know what? Casey DeSmith actually got the better of the Oilers a couple of times, and I have to give him credit. He played really well. And I don't think, we look at Casey DeSmith against Demko, and obviously one guy's all world and the other guy's he's been a decent backup in the National Hockey League. So I'm not saying that Vancouver cannot, prevail and do it by committee or anything like that, but it did get tougher for the Canucks. And one thing they have been able to prove all season long is there's consistency, there's a work ethic there, an ability to have the next man up and fill in. And so I think we're still in for a hell of a series, and good job by Nashville to take the lead early on a fortuitous bounce on that, just shot from the blue line from Philip Forsberg. Then he goes and he scores an absolutely ridiculous goal later. I think we're in for a long series over there. I thought that Vancouver probably, if Demko was in there for the entirety of the series, stayed healthy, maybe 5 games, 6 at the most. But now I think we're talking about a series that might go the distance because there's going to be some back and forth. Let's see how the Canucks handle it mentally too, Huss, because, there's some people, and myself included, was wondering about Vancouver in the postseason. Are they battle hardened? What was the 2020 bubble playoffs like for them? How much of that really carries over? How much of the team is still there from that team? I think now that those questions that we had maybe going into the playoffs, they just get heightened given this situation. So I think that's going to be a fun series. But yeah, Oiler fans are looking at that going, that's too bad.
Have a good time at Hudson's with the crew. Looking forward to this game tonight, and nice to have the less stress with the Jets off for a couple of days before we get into game 3. Say hi to the fellas and keep up the great work. We'll talk to you soon, Tommy.
Likewise, Haas. Thanks for having me.
Good stuff. There's Tom Gazzola. You can follow him on Twitter at Tom Gazzola, doing pre, post, and Oilers coverage for our boys over at Edmonton Sports Talk. All right. We do have to hit a few topics with Reem before we get out, but let's quickly hit the Coolbet lines. We were just talking about the Oilers and Kings today, and at Coolbet, the Oilers are minus 183 favorites in this game tonight. The Kings plus 154. Dallas, a much bigger favorite in game 2 than they were in game 1, and I think that speaks to just how desperate the Stars will be tonight to even the series going back to Vegas. Dallas minus 162 on the money line. The Golden Knights plus 137. And the early game, it's the Bruins and the Leafs. This one's basically a pick'em. Leafs minus 110 and the Bruins minus 107. Hey, tomorrow on the Lock Shop when Dusty's back, we're going to be going over NFL draft odds. But if you are a draftnik and have been paying attention and maybe want to put a little wager, tons of NFL options for you for the number 1 overall pick, the 2 pick, the 3 pick, the 4 pick, the 5 pick, as well as a ton of props when, it comes to how many positions players will be taken in the first round, as well as where individual players will be picked. So all up there at coolbet.com. You got Live Golf Adelaide, and Patty and Jake actually are down in New Orleans at the Zurich Classic. Couple of nice Canadian teams. Corey Connors teaming up with Taylor Pendrith, and Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor, who had a great run at this event last year there as well. So it's all there at Coolbet. If you haven't already played there, you can use the promo code WST and get a 100% bonus up to $200 on that first deposit. Good stuff with Tommy, and always a fun chat with Ken Remo as we get ready for an off night for the Jets. Actually 2, but a big night in the National Hockey League for the 6 teams that are playing.
Yeah, a couple games tonight, so I get to relax. And the game I'm most looking forward to, I think this is the series to watch. Dallas hosting Vegas. Vegas, the number 1 heel in the NHL right now. It's like Yokozuna in the early 90s, WWE. Everyone wants to see them lose, but they're this juggernaut that's bonsai dropping everyone. So we'll have to see how Dallas responds, if Jake Ottinger can have a better performance than in game 1, because they're going to need that. And Vegas is going with Logan Thompson again. And how about Mark Stonas? You think he's going to kick off the scoring again and whip everyone into a frenzy? We'll have to wait and see. So that is
the miracle of Mark Stone. It's Mr. Game 1.
It's funny. We talked about yesterday's show, the miracle healing powers of Mark Stone and all the great doctors they have in Vegas. We did have one person commenting that, hey, shout out to the great doctors here in Winnipeg too. Peter McDonald does a great job as well here in Winnipeg. I don't know if he got the tongue-in-cheek nature of our conversation about Mark Stone. I think he was really offended that we just spent so much time talking about Vegas doctors and didn't mention the great physicians here. So shout out to that comment.
Hey, you know what? While you mention that, I got to give a quick shout out to a couple guys that came up to me, and I hung out for a bit before the game last night. Speaking of doctors, Edsel, who's a pediatrician, and Nick, who's got the white top over on Salter. Great dudes. Big fans of the show. Had a real fun time chatting with those cats before the game last night. Listen, we need to finish off with a greater discussion on Salmon Shirt Guy. But before we do that, Remo, fill us in on these potential names for Utah's National Hockey League franchise based on, I guess, what has been copyrighted or registered?
Yeah, so the Arizona players right now, they're taking a tour of Utah. Owner Ryan Smith, he's spending all the money to send them out there. Who the coaches there, Tourney, so meeting some young hockey players. But there's a lot of investigative journalists out there looking into what trademarks they filed. This is Ryan Miller, in the beat writer, not the former goalies, with KSL.com. His Twitter profile is Utah Jazz beat writer, and I think I cover hockey now too. So I guess they're filing these trademark applications, and this is what could be on the table for the Utah hockey team. Let me know what you think of these. Utah Mammoth, Utah Ice.
Not good.
Utah Yetis. Utah.
Interesting. Very unique.
Okay.
Like Kraken, sort of. That reminds me of the Kraken. Kraken's been a big hit.
I don't know. I just wasn't sure if Yeti plural was Yetis. I thought it was like a singular thing. And then I don't know where you stand on having a hockey or a sports team nickname that doesn't end with S, like Magic, Heat, Kraken. I don't think it really matters either way if it's a good name. But the other one, Utah Venom, Utah Fury.
Nope.
Utah Blizzard.
Now we're talking. In fact, I'm going to go on the record. That is, I bet that's what they end up with. And, you know, considering it's the same ownership, to have, and I know this is going to sound stupid, but in some ways, the marketing possibilities of having the Jazz and the Blizz together, the double Z in both, I'm kind of thinking, and again, it is sort of a cool name. I think I would go with that one. Although Outlaws, I see on the list as well, is sort of neat and very different theme from the rest of them. And then the hockey club, Utah HC, very European style, which would be interesting. I kind of prefer if they go with the team name, although I still think that the Washington Commanders should be the Washington football team. I love the WFT, and I was very choked when they changed that.
Yeah, I actually agree. I think that's kind of catching on with the kids. A lot of kids playing, you know, like FIFA, and every team is like FC, and I used to think that was kind of lame, but maybe I'm into it. Blizzard, I don't think, when I think of Utah, I don't think Blizzard. I think that's like a Winnipeg name, and someone says it's too close to Avalanche. That's boring Sean Monahan in chat, which I mean, the Blizzard versus the Avalanche, I kind of get hyped for that matchup, but it is very similar name. So, I mean, they're going to put out a poll, the owner, Ryan Smith, so curious what they do with the branding. And here's what the team hoodies they're wearing. It's like an NHL logo. It says Utah established 2024. and it has the NHL logo on this black hoodie, which I'm really hoping we see a return of the NHL jersey at the draft, the one Mark Scheifele wore when he was picked by the Jets. Will the Utah first-round pick get, what jersey is he going to get? Because I don't think it's going to be ready, so we'll have to see. I'm hoping he gets an NHL logo.
I think it'll be just a special to say Utah on it. I don't think it'll be like the 2011 Scheif special that was put on Mark when he became the iconic first pick of Winnipeg Jets 2.0.
And just on the flip side now, all these stories are coming out about Alex Meruelo in Arizona. He's got this 5-year window, and Pierre LeBrun tweeted, I don't think that I haven't talked to any governor who thinks he can do it. And Katie Strang has this great piece at The Athletic saying the Coyotes are gone, leaving fans heartbroken, players uprooted, and employees worried about their jobs. Don't mistake Alex Meruelo's role in the center of it all. And
the NHL can't afford to have this guy running one of their member clubs. And I think they all realize that. And as I said on the show, right when we first heard, we were talking about the Jets' history and what's happening because it's all mothballed right now. Make no mistake about it. The National Hockey League did what they had to do to keep this out of court and make it happen smoothly and quickly as possible. They are putting a bunch of very, I think, important but strict conditions on this. Morello's track record of coming through in anything in relation to this is brutal. So, like Pierre was mentioning, I think everyone involved with the National Hockey League is just starting the stopwatch right now, hoping they can get through the 5 years without Meruelo doing what has been indicated that he has to do. Hopefully someone else can get in a rink going at some point before then. And then they move back into Phoenix with new management. And the market needs that as well. I mean, we talked about that with Petey, Steve Peters, when he joined us last week. This guy has burned so many bridges and crushed relationships that are so important, that are the basis of the health of the franchise. The people, I don't think anyone will trust them. A new start with new ownership in the desert, I think the team will work. But obviously it needs the arena. Here's the tweet from Pierre. I haven't heard from an NHL governor yet that believes Meruelo will be able to build the arena and reactivate the Coyotes franchise within the 5 years allocated. And then boosts up Katie Strang's tweet or post on the article. That's in The Athletic right now. All right, Remo, before we go, maybe we should get these pictures up. While there was a loss for the Jets on the ice last night, another win for hilarious Winnipeg fans. Everyone, for the most part, was staring at the guy in the salmon shirt or pink shirt last night. There's Ezzy with the initial tweet. And you, of course, then noted that the fans in the upper bowl had started a salmon shirt chant. And some people probably might have missed the start of the show. That tweet of yours went quite viral.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there with Connor and Jacob Stollers with the hockey news, and I just hear these guys chanting in the section next to us, and I'm trying to make it out, and it took me a couple seconds. They're chanting salmon shirt for this guy sitting there among a sea of white. And I mean, you stand out like a sore thumb here. It looks like, and shout out to everyone in chat, it looks like one of the Pan Am Games 99 polos. They handed out to volunteers, if anyone remembers those. And I just thought, hey, this is kind of amusing. You know, we were talking about fan chants. And I thought it was big enough that I heard it. And people are responding to my tweet saying, yeah, well, our section was chanting it too, chanting salmon shirt. I mean, the Jets, I forget if they were winning or losing at that point, but it was an audible chant. And I just threw it out there. And next thing I know, first of all, Ezzy's tweet, 268,000 views on X, formerly known as Twitter. And mine has 162,000. And I guess Jesse Pollock thought it was funny. He texted me, "Hey, did that actually happen?" I was like, it wasn't like the whole arena, and it was a couple sections for, minute, maybe 30 seconds. And I guess he sent it to Jay Onrate. Jay Onrate tagged me, and I'm getting messages from these aggregator accounts. And my wife's like, "Hey, you're on Winnipeg Wilden." And a couple friends.
Winnipeg Wilden?
Yeah,
Get
I made
outta
it now.
here.
A couple friends are texting me. It's on they had the guy in the salmon shirt on the Ace Burpee show. There's an article with him on CTV News as well. I mean,
so funny. Look at what you started. Well, actually,
As he did.
I need to give credit to one of my knucklehead buddies, Neil Einerson, who started the chant last night. And he texted me. He's up in, I think, 302. So right in that corner, kind of 330 through to 302. That was the corner. Here's the chat. Here's the picture of him from the upper bowl, pointing the guy out from the upper deck. And he said, "I was on him from the beginning. I was telling everybody at the first intermission, we're getting the salmon shirt chant going." Probably had the whole corner of the upper deck yelling him. Having known Neely for a long time, he's a guy that I think back to long time ago would just be involved with a number of knuckleheads that I associated with. Just randomly starting chants at bars, in public. So this is totally on brand for him. His Twitter is at Neil Einerson, Winnipeg Neely, a Dolphins fan, huge Bomber fan, huge Jets fan, and firing up a little fun side story from last night. Shout out to the guy in the salmon shirt. The other great costume, Remo, was the pink gorilla last night who was sitting. Did you see him at the top of, I want to say, 218, row 7 yesterday? Had the gorilla suit, neon white, and then I think they gave him a whiteout T-shirt and he put it on afterwards. But of all of the fans in the building, he was the hardest to miss.
I don't know if I saw that guy actually. So I don't know. I was up high. I couldn't really see, but what Pat McAfee did, I saw he gave a shout out to the Winnipeg crowd and highlighted someone with a huge Jets face paint, which was very well done.
Oh, that lady or that girl from the street party.
And the street party. You want me to throw that up? I mean, this was
McAfee's all in on the peg. We got to get him, the fellas, out here at some point. You would love it in the summer. Bring them out and get them out to the Canada or Princess Auto Stadium for a Bomber game. The McAfee crew knows how to have a good time, and they would have a great time at a Bomber game. I'll tell you that much. But I think that the deal is right now, we want to be a part of the craziness of Canada Life Center. And, one way or the other, we're back at it next Tuesday for Game 5. I guess the hopes are that it will be at least 2-2. And, of course, that is predicated on whether the Jets can get a win in Colorado after dropping home ice advantage last night. We got to get the pod up. Shout out to everyone hanging out with us today, podcast listeners, all of you in the chat. We'll fire it up again tomorrow and look ahead to Game 3 on Friday night. Over the next few days, we'll have Murat. We'll touch base with some of the Avalanche writers as well. Billick, Rewicki, and I think Jeff Kerberson's going to come on tomorrow and talk about a big event celebrating the WHA Winnipeg Jets next month. So we'll have that for you. But of course, huge thanks to all the sponsors that make Winnipeg Sports Talk happen each and every day, and all of you for making us a part of yours. Positive thoughts and positive vibes only tomorrow, heading into Friday in Game 5 on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 live on YouTube.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.